Welcome to the vibrant world of the brand new So Ionic Botanicals website. Are you ready to take your health to the next level with us? If so, let's dive in and explore our exciting new website together. First, let me introduce you to our premier product, Nesut Nectar Stingless Bee Honey. With raving reviews and testimonials, which you can watch right here, Nesut Nectar is a must-try item in our collection. Next, unlock the ancient wisdom of nature with our sacred herbs, a unique collection of rare, powerful herbs sourced from the heart of Honduras and Mexico and designed to elevate your wellness journey. Scroll down to the bottom of this page to find our social media links. Make sure to follow us on all platforms to stay updated on our latest products and special offers. Now, let's head over to the product page. Click on products to unveil hidden treasures like beefy tea, a bitter crafted from over 10 indigenous Honduran herbs. Once you've made your selections, hop over to the cart and finalize your purchase to bring the best of nature into your life. Don't forget to check out our media page. This is where you can subscribe to our Patreon and YouTube for exclusive content on various health topics. Curious about the brains behind So Ionic Botanicals? Head to the About page to meet our founder, KT the Archdegree, and discover the passion driving our mission. Got questions or just want to say hello? Our contact page is just a click away. Reach out to us with any inquiries and we'll be more than happy to assist you. We are thrilled to have you here with us and we sincerely appreciate your support and business. Thank you for choosing So Ionic Botanicals and we look forward to helping you see the world more clearly.
Are you ready to transform your financial future? The Cryptocurrency Wealth Blueprint is back and it's bigger than ever, featuring the Chicago Blockchain Bully. This exclusive online event will take place on Saturday, December 21st, 2024. Learn how to earn massive money from meme coins and seize opportunities others miss. Discover the best coins to buy as we enter the upcoming bull market, positioning yourself for massive gains. Dive into the world of blockchain land buying. Get your piece of the future before it's too late. Explore sovereign financing and secure your wealth with unprecedented independence. Get the inside scoop on the redirection of XRP and how this shift can boost your portfolio. How will the Trump presidency impact the crypto market? Get the insights you need to make informed decisions. Prepare to make money during the massive altcoin season ahead. Timing is everything. This event includes a 6-hour online course with lifetime access. Learn at your own pace and always stay ahead. Seats are limited. Secure your access today and take the first step toward your crypto wealth journey. The future is waiting. The 2025 Cryptocurrency Wealth Blueprint, featuring the Chicago Blockchain Bully. Saturday, December 21st, 2024. Are you ready?
All right. Damn, y'all, in the first 2 minutes, we got about 1,200 people in the audience in the first 2 minutes. Y'all ready for this one? Y'all know what time it is. I might be extra loud, so don't be like, damn, why Rich so loud? You'll be loud too if you had Sevan Bomar and Ron Hayes together on a podcast or on a show for the first time ever. This is history in the making. Without further ado, to start the show, ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome Sevan Bomar. I want to welcome Ron Hayes to the show. Oh man, you gotta have fun with this consciousness thing. Absolutely. Welcome, yo. It's a pleasure. Honestly, seriously though, it's a pleasure and it's an honor to have both of y'all here together at the same time. What's going on, gentlemen?
You know, you the first one to bring us together. And the first time I heard about him, I heard about him through Orisha Stone, which is the blood heir to Duddy Bookman. Mm. And he was like, man, you ain't heard of Sevan Bomar? I was like, no, it's about a couple years ago. Mm-hmm. He said, man, you got to go check out Sevan Bomar. I said, I'm going to go check him out, see what he's talking about. And I was, been on to him since then, and he be dropping some fire.
Indeed.
Yeah. And like you say, he got the crispiest videos on the internet.
This brother, this is why, hold up, before you say something, and I'm going to share the brother's links. I need everybody, like, the white folks got their technology and they got their Mark Zuckerbergs and they got the dude that's ahead of OpenAI. And they got dumb dudes like we got Sevan Bomar on our end. So I really want, as I share the links tonight, and I'm going to ask the AI question and things of that nature, but I really want y'all to put this brother not just as a a metaphysical speaker, but this guy is amazing when it comes to technology, AI, all that stuff. I really want y'all to get used to this brother and look at him through that lens. I'm gonna share the links. But with that being said, we'll talk about that a little later. Sevan, Rod, welcome. What's up, Sevan?
Well, first of all, I was already saying to everybody, I need to figure out where all the language is stored.
Yeah.
Because I'm so excited for this evening. Like the energy was so high. It's always like that. There's no feeling, when you know it's about to be big and you're right in the beginning of it, right? And for sure, I don't think you can really be in this space without knowing who Rod is. Like I'm a fan from the early videos. Like you could tell when there's that Gnosticism where somebody is really just tapped in and just going to give it to you as it is. And we can always respect that. And also, it's that time, we're rolling into 2025. We need to really be bundling up well together because we're building something. It's already built, right? And it's getting bigger. And, we want to make sure that everybody is maintained and managed, growing. Everybody's different. So each person is a unique key to a unique door. And, it's these type of way showers here that are bringing in them potent, masters for masters, I call it. We all gain something from each other and add that to that collective that we have on this side. But on the other side, we all dialed in anyway because we're all the same thing. And that's just the beauty of, how synchronicity works. So I'm honored to be here. I'm always going to come in doing my best, looking forward to moving me out the way. I just know it's going to be lit. So however long it takes, I know people are excited. They love to see us coming together too. So I'm feeling the energy, like I said. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Brother Rich, you glowing over there. By the way, I want you to know that your inner light is on. That between your wife and the new baby, you glowing.
The new baby. I got a new baby, y'all. I got a new baby. So listen, and I'm glad you mentioned that because that's gonna lead. We gonna get this thing. We gonna start running fast breaks immediately during this show, y'all. We ain't gonna waste no time getting right into it. Rod talked about I just had a new baby. I just had a daughter, right? So check this out. This show we're talking about, it's called the Holy Costume. We got this costume that we're wearing. It's not really who we are, but we're wearing it, and we're pretending to be something, and we're experiencing this realm or whatever. A lot of general questions about spirituality and ancient history. We're gonna start out because Rod mentioned my daughter. We're gonna start out like this, gentlemen. So there's a lot of times when, let's say, I'm gonna use Michael Jackson for an example. We'll see Michael Jackson, and then we'll see a picture of a pharaoh, and we'll be like, "Yo, Mike, look just like that pharaoh. What the hell?" I mean, the nose, everything, the face, the hair, it might just look just like that, and everybody knows what image, pretty much, I'm talking about because it's all over the internet. But there's countless examples. We may see somebody in Brazil. As a matter of fact, the dude from American God, they say, "Yo, Sevan look just like that nigga. Oh my God, he looked just like Bomar." Then we may see Rod, and we may see somebody in, let's say Brazil or Africa, South Africa. Be like, "Yo, is that Rod Hayes? Oh, that got to be Rod Hayes." So we're always seeing people who look just like somebody else. So saying that to say this, my daughter came out looking like my mother, and it was spooky. I was like, "Oh shit!" Like how she looked like my mother. Like it was like, because my girl is dark skinned, but my mother's light skinned with green eyes. My daughter came out light skinned with green eyes. I'm like, how the hell did my girl produce this baby? But so with that being said, we compare life to a video game. In a video game, a lot of times you have a certain amount of characters you could pick from to play from that video game. So I want to ask y'all, in this game we call life, is there a certain amount of characters that we could pick from? And this is why Sevan looks like him, my daughter looks like her, Rod looks like him, I look like him, because there's only a limited amount of characters that we could pick from. So occasionally there's going to be a character that reappears throughout history. It looks like time travel, but it's really not. But it's just that we can only pick a selected amount of characters in this game we call life.
I'm gonna let Sevan go first.
And that one right there, that could be the whole show right there.
Oh man!
Because look, let me just drive over it, and then Rod is gonna come in and ride through it, and then we'll see where we get to. So right away, I'm thinking we're gonna go high level occult right away. And
Let's
then,
go.
we'll
Let's
make
go.
it back
Let's
to the
go.
surface later on, right? So
Yeah.
we know for sure in this particular space and time, there are archetypical beings. And in many ways, like even, all of us could be brothers and sisters if you start looking at us really deeply, even on this line. But what happens is that you have bigger energies also that influence whole tribes. This is why you go to different tribes and you see everybody be looking like brother and sister. It's not just a genetic thing. There's also a soul there, right? And so the more that soul is mixed, in that way, more characters are available. But here is one thing that I want to point out, which was this, because I'm coming in with receipts all the time now, because we going heavy duty. Okay, like it's setting up for it to be a glorious year. So this particular work, Wombs and Alien Spirit, really go deep at I got something in my throat, but really go deep at just the reality that our ancestors actually lined up the birth of the children they were bringing in with the star based on the characteristic of the star, and were always really looking to invite certain energies in because they did often mean more success, more strength, more power. But often the ritual, which was held by the great mothers, was still so complex that failure in that process, in a misfiring of timing, would even equal where the child would be even disturbed, diseased, whatever, and then they would have to work on that child spiritually. So it lets us really see that for sure all of the archetypes themselves are, we could say, quote unquote, in the stars. And then the manifestations of the main characters coming here are really just an act of the genetics and we'll say like soul genetics, who's mixing together to actually create this new path that this being is going to walk down, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So you're on the journey. You ain't alone, obviously, because you're coming with the DNA. Like I have the same thing with my daughter. She's got the red hair. It's almost like blonde hair like my father's. I didn't get it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's skip a generation and then come out the next generation over, right?
Gotcha.
So yeah, I'm not trying to hog this up though today, man. I just, I wanted to drop mine in.
Indeed, no, we're gonna keep it flowing. No, indeed, my brother. Go ahead, Rod.
So I'm glad he brought up the sequences of DNA, and he connected it to the certain amount of energies and how the women used to line up the birth of the child to the alignment of the stars. That's all what you call esoteric, mostly Hermetic doctrine of information, because Hermetics primarily deal with genetics. In the genome is like a long radio station or radio receiver. Like you got a whole bunch of channels, right? But in order to get to the channel you want, you have to know how to align the DNA. The alignment comes in through aligning it with a zodiacal constellation. So this is the origin of the zodiac. The women figured out a long time ago, before they made men, that if a woman or a man, back then it was just a masculine energy or feminine energy came in at a certain time based on the winter solstice, summer solstice, and the two equinoxes. You know when they coming in, and you know what energies you are channeling, right? So you hear him say that the prayers of the mother is answered through the womb. Well, what was your mama praying for when she was gestating you? Because she was programming your DNA. Because they told her she was praying for an outcome in life, they didn't tell her that when you have a child growing in you and you continuously pray or be in a high stated negative emotion, either way, which is ultimate calm or ultimate chaos, that's going to mold your child. Okay. This is part of the sciences that we teach the doulas about when they instructing the mothers to give them back this information that we talking about. So what the mother is doing by bloodline is they literally dialing in the sequence on the genome. And this is when you start getting, it's only so many facial structures. It's 7 specific or key or root facial structures. So it's 7 to the 7th power of 7, right? Which is a 777 genome materialization, which means that each one of them 7s have 7 options to the 7th power of expression. Right? So now, if people are constantly being born, dying, you recycling or opening up frequency stations. The frequency stations is calibrated from a star system in a specific point in the sky at a specific time of the year. So you bring in somebody under the zodiacal sign of Cancer, born under this bloodline, O positive, O negative, coming from this geography, the Americas, right? Born in this metropolis, Chicago, right? On this day, 10th of November, you dialing in and tuning in the child. And the genome is matching it up like a radio station matches up a frequency. If it doesn't align, that frequency can't express itself in the 3D world because you can't express yourself where you're not at. Right? So in the understanding of how genetics work, right? And like Sevan brought up how his father's blind hair skipped him and went to his daughter. Right? That's called a heritable cross-family flip from the fatherland to the next motherland. And his daughter's mother is okay in her daughter's DNA to receive the inheritance of the father. They call them daddy's girls. Blue house. Right? Mama's girls is red house. That means they straight direct descended down the motherland. They don't give a F about the fatherland's heritable rights over they mama's heritable rights. This is what we fighting these wars is being fought under those 2 pretenses. Gender heritability is the cause of all war on earth. And the people that's sending everybody to war is not telling them what bloodlines is fighting who. All this is relevant. Barack Obama is a clone of Akhenaten.
I heard that.
Right?
Wow.
Yeah. So the boys from Brazil, everybody thought that the Nazis was cloning Adolf Hitler. They wasn't cloning him. Go back and watch where the Thule Society sent the Nazi regime. And when you see where they sent them primarily 2 places, the Himalayas, led by Rubens, I think it was. And then they sent them into Egypt. Why? Those are the 2 oldest temple complexes. And so when they got the information, it gave them the genetic download information and the chemical formula to clone a human being that they wasn't supposed to have. And the first thing they thought that Tupac is touched. So in order to stop him from ruling, we got to reincarnate his father so he can pull rank. But we got to program him where he only worked for us. An antichrist. One who's coming to seize the throne that doesn't belong to him from the rightful heir. Right? A usurper. A Jacobite. And then you get to where we at now.
I want to build in right on that because you know, I don't know what's going on here tonight. All I know is we all going. Okay. So check it out in the queue to corroborate exactly what he's saying.
Yes, sir.
Is to still remember
what's going on here.
What you would say is quote unquote melanated heraldry. This is Charlemagne. This is obviously James.
Who, King James? That's King James?
I'm just rolling them across, right? And they got the names on them.
All right.
But we have to remember that they actually went against the Moors. right? So this wouldn't be like you would just go on one side and just be like, oh, it's all black people on one side and white people on one side. No, that's where the confusion comes in, because we had quote unquote black people joining in with not just Europeans, but also Germans to fight against the Moors in the Crusades, right? And to me, that still makes up the missing link, because then once the war is fought, and then what we're saying now is Christianity is ruling the day, the rulers, or in this case, black nobility, are then double crossed. And then the empire gets switched. Everything gets what they call technocracy or iconoclast. Yes, everything gets iconoclast when you change the pictures and the colors of everybody that was involved. And then it becomes this huge missing link where people are still trying to figure out, like, well, what exactly, what happened to the spirituality, and what, whose side it was on. And it just becomes almost like a good or bad, or black or white, when it's way more deeper than that. That this is like you're entering a bar on Star Wars, and you got all of these different characters, families, and sometimes you got to be the fly on the wall too, because a lot of these families were literally confronted with, as families even in Syria and everything right now are confronted with, are you with Assad? No, hell no, I ain't with Assad. But was walking the other day with Assad. You see what I mean? Meaning that it comes time for, by threat of life, someone will say, hey, did you believe in this? That's why I say, so some Jews became Christians, a lot of Jews became Christians when it's like, hey, was y'all with him? No, we ain't with him. But then, of course, also to remember that King James set up Jamestown, which was a colony, of course, inside the United States, but that also was infringing on Indian territory. And many of those Indians was why your grandma used to say, hey, some of those Indians don't like us either, because they already knew what was also going on in the end of the dynasty. And that's one of the things that I believe that we all have to make sure that we remember is that when you're seeing something at the end, something, life existence always runs this cycle. It's got to plan to take everybody through the whole process to see how you endure. So if you're only judging things based on the end, that's going to be a little one-sided. It's like not really looking at something when it's new and when it's fresh.
It's an excellent point.
Yes. And then we've learned a lot, is what I'm saying.
Well, with those pictures you showed, and you showed King James and the Pope, I gotta ask y'all this. So, all right, I could ask 30 different scholars a question about you show King James about Jesus, right? I'll get 30 different answers. They all might have an aspect of truth to them. So there was a quote unquote debate that went viral with Billy Carson and Wes Huff. And one of the I didn't even get around to watching the whole thing, but one of the things that went viral was a discussion on Jesus and the crucifixion. So I want to ask y'all, in terms of the crucifixion and in terms of this mystical, this character we call Jesus, we keep hearing stories after stories, images after images. One image, he's black. One image, he looks like a white homosexual. Another image, he looks Middle Eastern. We see all types of images. We hear all types of different accounts and stories. 33 crucified saviors. I hear all types of different things. What is, according to your historical knowledge, what went down with this? What went down with this event, this crucifixion event, that totally impacted how we live today? Because everybody talks about it constantly. Jesus' name is mentioned constantly. He's one of the most famous people. This name with this energy just completely dominates the globe. So according to what y'all have studied, and it could be different, that don't mean both of y'all are wrong, but according to what you have studied, what could you tell me about this? And I know people are going to say it's an allegory. Yeah, it could be an allegory, but it could be an allegory, and something could have happened at the same time. What is your account of what went down with Jesus and this crucifixion story?
Rod, if I may, just
go ahead.
Yeah, Sevan, you got the floor.
I came here to hear you and to talk to you. So
you got the floor, Sevan. Come on, brother.
I just want to say this for the record.
Yes, sir.
If I'm going to debate or argue anything, you're going to have to prove to me first that even exists.
Okay.
Or else it's almost like a fool's errand in the first place, because I would literally be arguing over something that still hasn't been proven. And I'm saying, prove to me that this variant of Jesus or the Christ actually even existed. So we'll start there.
Yes, sir.
But for the deeper level of this, we still have to remember eidolons are simply when people concentrate their energy into images and symbols. And it does become very much alive. So whether the average Christian will admit that, yeah, it's not the story at all, because the story is originally taken from the Naga. The story is originally about the coming forth by day. There's deep knowledge about just the process of what it takes to even raise up a people, the crocodile fat, the Mashiach, the Kundalini, right? So if the only thing that we would be talking about is the difference between the exoteric explanation of Kundalini as the Christ versus an esoteric explanation as of a king, a physical king, as an evangel or a go-between between man and all there is. We'll put it that way.
Yes,
and
sir.
what could happen if somehow whoever you have filtering that information through you to you is not the firstborn of your own family line? And because that's how such things were always governed. The Messiah arrived in families, like the Kwisatz Haderachs and all of this, right? They got families where mystics are born in those families and guide that family lineage. As it says, you know, you could stay behind even if your soul is powerful enough to still want to protect your family, and you will become the protecting spirit of your family in the middle plane. So that's all I just wanted to add on this before this got into anything else, was just that one, you would have to prove that version to me for sure, because that that version is not the one. Even the one in Ethiopia, which is what King James took from, and his father took from, and Charlemagne took from, the one in Ethiopia, which was from the Negus. That's why they have the Negus, the king of the kings. This is before even Menelik. This is before even Sheba. It's about these black-headed ones, these people that they would say in the markets that they had these designs and gems and jewelry and all that, but you never saw them. The aquatic ones, you see what I mean? That seeded in many ways the Delta and all throughout that region, all the way up into Sri Lanka. And if you want to prove it, you could go here to Dr. Srivanasan, and you can even see how the language of Tamil connects all the way into the Sumerian. And you can also see how the Kola kings, which are the Naga kings and princes, rebelled against their mother at a certain stage.
Put a pin right there. Repeat that one more time.
The Kola kings, or the Naga kings in the latter dynasties, rebelled against their mother.
Against who?
Their mother.
Okay, I wanted to make sure you put emphasis on that. That's important. Okay, go ahead.
And the rest, as with anything, when you start moving big time pieces out of the way, starts really faltering from there, because it's the simple fact that this is where we're all at right now. It's about how we really treat our elders and feel about our elders. And this society has really forgot about, because sometimes when you get an elder in the house, even these days, some people are like, yo, where is he going to work, or who's going to keep him, or whatever. And they trying to figure out where the value is in the elder. You'll get the check from him. But the value in our elders and restoring that line is just in the most basic way. They've just gone through 60 years. You could count that as human years. But now they're with all that experience, and they will love to teach that experience to the young. And then now he's got that experience and he grows from there. So that's the basics. But even beyond that, if you neglect who your father is, like they say in the book of the Saxons, like our dark fathers, and this is the book of Saxony, right, where Coburg and Gotha and all those German families come from. If you remove that link, regardless of what happened and how you feel, you will be disconnected. That's just how it works. And so another thing to just add in to be finished, because we were talking about now these paths and these roles that when you come into these matrices, we have now completely discovered that even the tarot in itself is an addition to the original, what you would call original tarot, which is just the calendar or the wheel or the times and the cycles that it takes to move around the sun, and the energy in which comes into the planet during all those times, specifically 52 weeks in a year, right? But then when we have a 78 deck, which they added 26 more cards, you got 26 letters in the English language. I'm showing proof, I'm gonna upload this tomorrow, that they literally add a new program of characters, a devil, a wheel of fortune, a hierophant, a fool, all these characters. Now, true, like I'm not saying like, yo, and this is where the evil is. I'm saying there's more characters in the game now. And so in many ways, when we take into those original numbers and those original roles, that's where we'll find our comfort, because that's who we are. We're in that originality. So that's, I just want to add that. I want to go with that today.
Got you. Excellent.
What's the name of the story that you asked us about?
That I asked you about?
Yeah, that we're talking about right now. What was the name of the story?
Just the Jesus and the crucifixion story. The whole
crucifixion story?
Yeah. Like what went down.
Do you know in Latin, crucifixion is crux and fiction. Or ficticio, right? Crux means the center or the key point of something.
Right.
Fiction means it's made up. Let that sink in for a second.
Gotcha.
Crux mean at the center of something. Fiction means something somebody made up. And if they make it up and they tell it as agreed, it's called a story. Right? So they telling you in the name of the story, the validation of its fictional status. They telling you it's false. Right? That's why I wanted to make sure I pointed out that this was a war against the great mother. So when he was reciting it, I wanted him to go over it, put a pin in it. So that would change the whole dynamic. If there was never a J created under King James, we wouldn't be calling him or her Jesus. Because in Greek, I-E-S-O-U-S, Isis, applying the rules of grammar and pronunciation, it says Isis, right? So when you go to the historical narrative, you have something called the acts. What is an act? An act is a part of a play, right? And in a play, you have what's called the key characters. In this case, the key characters, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, are 4 different perspectives. They can't be looking at the same thing because they're not even given the same genealogy in the 2 books they give it of this person. That's because they're talking about 2 people. Because in the one book, they say the child was born and they called it named Emmanuel, meaning God with us. Why they stop calling him that? Where he go? So when you go to the words in red, you have what's called blatant contradiction of philosophical ideas. That means two people with 2 different messages is talking in the words in red.
Exactly. Exactly.
What do you mean, right? Go to Matthew 10:34. I come not to bring peace, but a sword. I come to set at a variant, mother against daughter, father against son. Right? Then a little later on, somebody's still talking about, I came to join the family together and bring love into the world and all that. That's not the same person.
Or
so
God
now,
is not confusion,
right?
And let us go down and confuse them.
Yep.
And it goes on and on and on like this.
So because ain't nobody study forensic profiling, psychological forensic analysis on their free time. I'm the only idiot that would decide to do that on my free time and get good at it. right? So now we looking at a story, it's two people. That's this righteous person, but it's two people. And they got two different ways of dealing with it. One say, pray for your enemies and love thy enemies as self. The other one say, go sell off your garments, buy up swords and knives. We about to take these to war.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So you looking at two different characters, forensically speaking, because they're not telling you the same story or the same idea. But the concealment is put both of their words in red.
Mhm.
Now, Emmanuel, meaning God with us, that's Heru, because it came from the coming forth by day. All of the epithets of Christ in the Bible are all of the epithets of my mother Isis in the coming forth by day.
Okay.
Right? And some of the epithets apply to Horus, right? His goal is to go from Kefra to Aten, right? So he going from the rising to the highest peak. This is in the zodiac wheel, you using the tarot cards to walk what's called the fool's journey. It is a blueprint and a roadmap, a yellow brick road to the destination, which is the throne of the Great Mother. And along the way, you have to figure out how to make sure that they can't stop her from receiving her throne as her son. That's the Horus story. Right? Now they showing you the pictures in the church of who they stole the story from. But you don't see it because they don't put that on public display. They display it in the Pope's chambers, the Black Madonna and Child. Right? Original bloodline, firstborn of the earthborn, parthogenic son of the Great Mother. Her forever redeemer. These people that Sevan Bomar was talking about in the families are called kinsmen redeemers or family redeemers.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And this is their job, is to find out their family's inheritance and who did it, where they at, and how you get it back. Now they know who's rightful heirs to the earth as the Madonna and Child, the mother and the son. The son is receiving rulership rights from the mother. He's not taking over. He's supporting her wisdom in the application of government, right? So you go through this journey. All of these are steps, but they are concealed in the fool's journey, which is actually the flip side, is the hero's journey. And the journey is the journey back to self, right? And all of the pantheon are family members that all of them is giving you the go ahead to sit on the throne. Now, if you look close in the center, you'll see Tawaret here. That's the Great Mother in the 13th zodiac seat, right? And this is a replica of the Temple of Dendera. She's the one that's the hippopotamus with the alligator spine. The alligator spine means she stand up straight. That means she a straight up woman. She don't mince meat with what she's saying. She telling you what she telling you. She got a cleaver in her right hand, right? She got a hippopotamus, the protective mother, in the mammary glands of a woman. That's Big Mama, right? All of these are tied to the original zodiac, which comes from the totem systems of using totem animals to read energy in the environment.
Right.
So these zodiac animals came from the totem animals of the original tribes of the earth tribes, of which there's 12 daughters of Isis, meaning 12 feminine bloodlines of mitochondria. Right? And they all been interrupted by several different Y chromosome intercepts that produce birth defects that was did on purpose in laboratories in Sumer. Right? Now that they got the birth defect, The only remedy is the original blood, one drop doctrine. Because Inky wrote the genome, he knew what to write to clean it up in the splicing program, right? So when they talking about the story's fictional aspect, it's religious. But when you talk about its actual aspect, it's metaphysical and it's science and it's a star map. And it don't got nothing to do with what you believe. It got everything to know with how well can you read the signs.
Powerful, powerful. You know, so you're talking about the zodiac rod, and Sevan put up the picture of the temple of Dendera.
Mm-hmm.
You know, man, as we say, this is a divine costume that we're wearing down here. Macabre, there's many names for it. A vessel,
Earth rover.
You know, we call it different names. In the spiritual community, a lot of us study sciences such as astrology, numerology, things like that, and you know, these sciences tell us certain things about who we are. But my question to y'all is, some of us are very old souls. Say, for example, Brother Rich, I might have existed before the sun, moon, and stars even was around. I might have been one of them souls that was around way before the sun, the moon, the stars, Saturn, scary ass Saturn, Jupiter, Venus, Mars, all that shit. I might have been around before all of that. Now, if I was around and souls like me were around before all of that, are we subjugated to the same rules of astrology as a soul who came around after these planetary bodies existed? Or do the rules completely change for souls that were around before this certain things in the matrix even came about?
Look, Michael Jordan was 12 years old. You think he could have beat Dr. J in the pickup game? 1-on-1?
When he was 12, no.
Okay, now, when he was 30, right, and you squared him up against Dr. J, now Dr. J is aged, right? And this is the continuation and the passing on of energy. Because Dr. J aged, if he could beat Jordan when he was the same age as Jordan was when he was 13, when he becomes 30 now, he's that much older than Jordan. So now all of his senses is declining because of something called age, right? So we looking at a baton passed to self. When you're talking about an individual soul, that's always has to be filtered through an ego. Because when you're not in the physical form, there is no one of us. We are unison. We are together. We the great egregore of consciousness that is creation. But when we take on a physical form, we encapsulate all that into an ego. And the old souls just learn how to use the ego to its advantage better than the new souls. And we called the new souls the snakes, but the old souls was the dragons. The great, terrible lizards, because they can control the manifestation potentialities of this physical form so good, they became spooky and scary like goblins and goons. But that was just another representation of the potency of their power. Right? So now we come in with the old souls clearing the way for the new souls to come in as the indigo race, which is not going to have anything to do with ethnicity, and it's going to have everything to do with which crystal will control your bloodline. Right? And it's going to be 12 major crystals, and the minor crystals fall under the major crystals, the trickle-down effect. All of it is tied together. So the old soul's responsibility is to come and live the life that to teach the new souls how to live life. Because we're not given an instruction manual at birth, we given amnesia instead. You muted, Rich.
No, I said, wow, yeah, talk to him. We giving him Nietzsche instead. That's powerful. God damn it, that's powerful.
So how they gonna learn how to live?
Yeah.
If the family is broken, the individual psyche is broken as he develops. So he's already developing from a broken perspective. So you give them misinformation, the perspective is broken, then you flip the map on them, tell them that south is down and north is up, when it's exactly the opposite, which twists their east-west orientation. It's subconsciously disorienting the subconscious, so the conscious mind can't navigate the 3D realm without somebody telling it where to go. You need borders set up. You need the velvet ropes to tell you how to walk down on the red carpet, right? But the wild man of the jungle can walk the path without a trail, right? And then he can come back and get everybody else and show them where is the destination. And this is when your old souls come in, and the difference from what they do versus, they let the young souls train themselves by trial and error. In this case, the youngest souls took on pale skin. So they had to go through a catharsis due to something called an Iceman inheritance, which developed the psychopathic racial personality. You know I'm dropping receipts while I'm talking, right? Them books that explain the whole philosophy of what I'm saying in detail. I just quoted by the title of the book so that the book can give you the further background. Because they don't be knowing I be dropping receipts, but some of the people will look up something I'm saying, and then they'll be able to follow the receipts. So the only way to get rid of the traits that the ice inheritance produces catharsis. Mm-hmm. Right? But somebody got to be strong enough to endure the suffering of the cat's paw, because they ain't running nothing. They just put up as the fall guy, the Coach Seavers, the stunt man, the crash dummy. And then the ones behind it is telling us kill Whitey, but this nigga Whitey. He the one wrote in the law that white was a Moor. They didn't write it. It's his contract that we following, right? They just reaping the rewards, being put in the position to go through the catharsis to purge themselves of the wickedness as they assimilate one drop of blood.
Okay. Sevan, you want to add on to that?
Yeah, because these things, they get really deep. When we really go there, what we're talking about is taking place even outside of time, even thousands and thousands of years of different levels of entities actually taking their sides in either exploiting the situation and furthering the building of the foundation on top of mother, no matter, what the cost is, continuously harvesting different levels of the souls that are here, keeping them in the game longer than they really should be, longer than the lesson. But sometimes, at the end of the day, we also see how everybody's gotten so strong in all of this. Like, I really wanted to just add some of the linguistic references, because what he's speaking on, you can also take apart in the Arabic. Again, the receipts is always great. I love to use the language. I love to use Ma'at or math. That's really all me in 2025 is just math, because these numbers are very important. Even just having 10 fingers, and what that really means versus the ancestors in every way having 12. Like when you go up the lineage, or you generally inbred into a family, you generally will have 6-finger children coming out. And a lot of this stems into just, again, the linguistic side, because
my daughter has 6 fingers. They had to cut one. They had to cut something off.
Okay, I think you're talking, Rich. But so basically, what was mentioned is that you begin as they talk about the neophytes as beginning as the serpents, but then the masters ending as dragons. And I found that very interesting in him stating that, because that's exactly what the hidden cult, if you may, of Amun, who is again that same pattern of the Kola kings rebelling against their mother, took the dialectic, which is basically the language, and not only created sub-dialectics, but also could not speak the language of their mother. And that's, of course, encased within the Dogon mysteries, the Day of the Fish, speaking on how the Great Mother, the language in which the women speak, the men of the species, if you may, that are not androgynous, they are not even allowed to speak that language. But that brotherhood then went on and developed this, what you would call today as even these sub-dialects, like even Hebrew and Arabic as they are now, these flame languages that actually in themselves are missing pieces, and at least half. As we'll notice, here's another book, The Alphabet That Changed the World, just showing the flame language and the position of the Hebrew language, but really that this is spellcraft that operates inside of a certain aspect of the consciousness, keeping a person basically inside of that matrix, and only immersion into nature, being aware of self, being more empathic, changing of the diet, all the things that we've been talking about starts making things clearer and clearer for a person to then begin to move on, even from the dogmatic religions and structures that have been put in place that are like the stepping stones for them. I always call it the Lord, right? The first step on the ladder, but still realizing that Lord and all these terms are terms heavily used within this same empire where the man had deified himself, meaning that you had men that said, hey, I'm God. And, you know, that survives even in the religious systems today. But that cult specifically, you know, is very embedded within the world today, very embedded within the linguistic systems, and does operate, as they call themselves, the masters of the waveform. They operate slightly out of the vibratory frequency of where we're phased in now, because this is still a lower frequency to where we're at when we're in something like the dream realm or the astral plane, or even in our higher vibration and still in the physicality. So the goal then becomes in the reality to continue to depress the beings, you know, keep them confused, get the vibration and frequency with a gap in it. So that way there's not a strong oscillation there, not a strong memory, not a what they would say where your blood is spiraling up, and you have that ability to implode and to move through even your dream space and actually interact with your multiple cells, multiple aspects of the ancestors, multiple aspects of the archetypes, in order to be able to discern truth from falsehood, because truly that's what in the end this starts to become about. That's why I always say in the end what remains will be the truth. Because now if this lesson served any purpose, which I believe it serves many, I actually do believe the ancestors cooked up a hell of a sim. It set on hard, but these are the rights. I feel like that even our ancestors had it definitely way more, you know, way more going on, because these are the rights anyway. You being tried by fire, you being tried for honesty, you being tried for, you know, these are the rights anyway that one is put through in the rearing process. And, you know, I believe heavily that many of our ancestors are like trees, that we're all seeded and then we're growing up. But then, of course, just like the parable of the sower, some of the seeds, they wilt, some of the seeds, they get corrupted. And, you know, that's also all part of the game. And, you know, but it's also very important from a maturity level to still realize when some of that knowledge or some of those ideas or things are creeping up on you and kind of persuading you to do things that affect your big time. Because right now still, yeah, they talk about the body being limited in certain ways, but it's where we're at right now. It's the control point in which we're one of the control points in which we're operating from. So what we do here, even in something called the game, they call it the game because there's characters, not because it's not serious and what you do doesn't have repercussions. But I still believe the whole process is to really refine and train the souls that are actually coming through it, as long as the guides and the way showers are, you know, still on the path, because every child that even came into this to a certain degree, at least, needed some kind of upbringing, and the better upbringing that child has still actually creates a better being. You know, I know a lot of us have become strong from going through a lot, but when we even see now this new generation, like even, you know, Rich's kids, they're growing up with a father because Rich knows how important it is to actually be there. We just went over a whole session where the father was like, yo, you know, I'm trying to have a baby with the whole world, you know, I'm trying to repopulate the entire kingdom. So, you know, this kind of restoration at the basic level, the family unit and the structures and the ideals in which we believe is really where the great transformation has got to come from anyway, right? So, yeah, I just wanted to add that, man. It's just, you know, I'm enjoying the build. You know, I'm in it. I'm in flux.
You know, and Rod, and I hear a lot of people talk about this rebellion against the Great Mother and this divine feminine energy. And you know, if I'm a bad guy and I'm rebelling against this divine feminine energy, I got to look at the most powerful part of this realm, of this matrix, of this game. And the most powerful part, what animates this thing, is something that we call the sun. So I'm gonna automatically make the sun masculine. Now, even in the conscious spiritual community, we call the moon feminine and the sun masculine. So what role was how much more of a feminine role did the sun play before this rebellion, if any? Is the sun, should we start looking at it as mother sun? Like talk to me about femininity.
I mean, we use these terms like mother, but there's female pumas, there's female women, there's female whales.
Yeah.
So we're really more saying what's behind the eyes of the female.
Gotcha.
Right. And in that way, from a polarity level, if you only have one pole, and that's why I say, hey, just pay attention. We got 26 letters in the English alphabet. 26 times 2 is 52. We got 52 weeks in a year. The whole point of the calendar, language, and everything is to be in direct alignment with the stars, to how long it takes for us to go around the sun and all the stations in between then. So if somehow this is even taking you half of the way, like, I don't even think it's half of the way, to be honest, but we could say, hey, it's half of the way, meaning the masculine aspect. You would still have to get that feminine aspect in order to be a dynamo. Like, I don't see the sun specifically as a woman, but a dynamo, a being that actually is capable of having what you would say is the masculine and feminine poles and a neutral in that case, all encompassed within the same force. Like something that, as we said, it's like it manifests as parthenogenesis. It manifests as hermaphroditic when it enters into the physical plane, because it can self-generate itself. And so, you know, and then that removes, notice what that would do though, that removes the Eve angel, which is where, like I'm saying, the priestcraft all the way up to what you would even say the extraterrestrials are always trying to get in between and broker the energy. And again, to make it like everybody is good, I think you got to understand that this goes beyond good and bad. You have different beings in play, ushering souls, brokering energy, moving stuff around. But this is also really about your awareness. How aware are you? When your eyes open and you realize what's going on, then you would be able to step in as intercessor for yourself. And then you will go to what you would feel more as a feminine energy, because there's a masculine force. But the lessons are like, it's a bit jaded. That's another conversation. But when you go to the feminine force, it's gentle, it's peaceable, it demands the purity, meaning like, it's almost like, hey, you can't be with no other girls. But we'll say girls just means any other distractions, any other things. You can't be with no other girls but me, as I go through this process with you and you gain this wisdom. You see what I mean? So this is in that way, a gentle and a peaceable spirit that takes one through having a counselor, something that 3 a.m. it's already going in, tumbling the last wheel of what was already being brought forth as the next level of your learning. What I feel like is when one doesn't have that activation of that feminine side, the wheels don't turn that way. There be something else talking. And we would discuss this. They set up altars in the mind, the whisperer and the language complex, et cetera. It'd be something else talking, but it's not that divine voice that actually is leading one to their true north, leading one through that process that they need to go through. So it's a mother and a father. That's why you look at the Mami Wata books, right? And, they show, when they show the sister, especially when you go further into the book, they show you like Dionysus is the cognate of one of the Sibyllines. But that doesn't mean she was going to come in a size 6, looking like Wonder Woman, so that a lot of times even the vision of the ancient mothers, a hippopotamus is the most dangerous, you know what I mean? But you may look at it and be like, I think the lion. No, but it's the, so what I'm getting at here is that the forces in themselves, they try and they test you for how much not you say you really believe in them or you connect with them, but how much that you actually do connect with them and make that effort. And I haven't seen any person that made that effort that didn't get an answer. And so I feel like that, that's absolutely special because all of this interference with the next thing that's in front of your face saying, hey, I'm God. I believe that's a natural trial that we all have to go through and pass at some stage in our journey. Right. And so I'm not really, I often go back and forth in my own mind about, when you give advanced levels of knowledge, in many ways, you're preventing a person from doing things that maybe otherwise they would have done, right? You're giving them wisdom so that they avoid some disaster. This is what your parents do. I encourage us always to keep doing that, because in many ways, the person is still going to have to make the decision themselves, choose if they really even want to do it or not, or when they want to do it. So there's still a lot more decision making that goes on, despite that you can tell the person exact knowledge and wisdom of what is happening here in the planet. It's no different than when our mothers was telling us, hey, don't go out and do this, and hang out with him. And then the next thing we was out with him. You see what I mean? That's a big part of how this is all structured. It's still everything that's happening we're witnessing in the family structure and what goes on even in our lives. When you say, hey, that rebellious son, man, I can't say that I was definitely not the rebellious son at some point. I wanted to get out the house. So all these archetypes are still built into the family structure and still actually happening to cause and effect within the world. And we have to also pay attention to, just to that and what roles these things play in that scheme of things.
I want to ask y'all. First of all, shout out to everybody. We got about 4,200 people in the chat. Shout out to everybody in the chat. It's one of them shows. It's a historical show. It's groundbreaking. This is something that people didn't even see coming. You know what I'm saying? But, Radiohead Rich, I'm tuned into frequencies. They said, I talked to Sevan. Listen, I was scheduled to do a show with Sevan, just with Sevan. Then I was on the phone with Rod, or something happened with Rod. I'm like, wait a minute. I said, wait a minute. Maybe I should get Rod and Sevan together. Because Rod talks about Sevan. Rod be like, yeah, shout out to Sevan, Bomar, blah, blah, blah. I said, wait a minute. Maybe I should get Rod and Sevan together on the show. So I asked her, I said, Sevan, you cool with it? Sevan said, hell yeah. Let's go. Let's get it. I'm ready. So that's how it happened. But legendary. Oh man, amazing show so far. We just passed the hour mark. We're gonna go to the next hour. We're gonna keep it moving to the next hour. Let me ask y'all this, all right? We're talking about the divine feminine, and I started thinking about ancient civilizations. I thought about, when our ancestors were strictly telepathic, no speech, right? Now, I'm saying that to say, let me just preface that. We know if we could compare it to what we've been through in this realm on this time. We know when the text messages came around, we know when the cell phones came around, things that was in our head, the way we used to communicate with people changed. The communication got lost. We're not close with people like we used to be when we had to make phone calls, or we had to see them, or we had to remember phone call or phone numbers and things that we have a reference points. Oh shit changed when text messages came out, when cell phones came around. We have a reference point. In terms of telepathic civilizations, I'm guessing that's when all this shit went astray, when things changed, when we're talking about all this rebellion and everything, is when we started using language, because one of the main purposes of language, people use that shit to lie. We lie like a motherfucker. We lie to ourselves. We lie to each other. We lie to family. We lie to friends. We just lie. But you have to be intuitive to know what's the intention behind somebody's language. So what I'm asking you with that being said, around what time period? Because I'm trying to track this, just like I could track around 2000 text messaging came around and cell phones came around 1999, 2000. What civilization did we go from telepathic to communication with our mouth? Because maybe that's when we could check. Oh, that's when the shit went from the divine feminine. That's when motherfuckers started lying and rebellion against all the internal, spiritual, intuitive senses that we once had. When did this split happen between telepathy and the spoken word?
You remember when Sevan was talking about the language of the women that they didn't let the men speak?
Yeah.
This the language.
What, telepathic?
Yeah. The women got a network. And the network is predicated up on the frequency on mitochondria. They all psychically connected. And that's why a lot of them, they don't know what's going on. They end up in psych hospitals because they're hearing all of the women chattering on the psychic channel.
Shit.
And they think they crazy. right? It's part of the symbols. When you understand that the symbols used to be able to consciously telepathically talk to each other, the symbols became the priestesses of the Delphi or the oracles of the Delphi, right? And before that, though, they was the goddesses in ancient Kemet. They was the great Inanna and the Rishkagal, etc. in Sumer. But the usurping of the divine feminine is the cause of the last ice age. This is what caused us to go through the ice age. There was a nuclear winter from a nuclear holocaust. And there was a Anunnaki war. It's in a book called the Vamanas Wars in India. Then the Vamana Sutras is what the name of it is. And they tell you about the crafts that was fighting back then. Right? They talk about it in the Sumerian tablets as well. And then they tell you in a lot of fictional stories about the Anunnaki, key bits of truth sprinkled through a fictional narrative.
Mm-hmm.
I was just showing the epic archetypes here because it's breaking down some of those conflicts, but even also putting in space that the Great Mother was the one who formulated even the first humans, mixing them with the God and with the beings that are here on Earth, as far as this coming from the text. And, continuously expressing that the schism, as our brother is saying, the schism that's continuing to happen is because there is still a conflict, if you may, for the throne of consciousness.
Indeed. Yeah. This is some powerful stuff, family. I want to ask now. let me put my camera back on. I'm loving your references as Rod is talking. This is what's powerful. As Rod is talking, Sevan's coming up with these images, and it's like a documentary. Like Rod's talking, and we see these ancient images. Like, this is good stuff. What you got there, Sevan?
It's a real time documentary too, because
oh yeah.
I just want to point out also that I still find it kind of fascinating that humanity thinks that when it finally finds, let's say, these beings, they got it now slated that God's going to show up, I guess, in some spacecraft, or he's just going to part the clouds, that it's actually going to look like the 3D version of the human now, which I think is a gross mistake, especially with what has already been uncovered in Angkor Wat, and how the temples in Angkor Wat are pointed to Draco, while the temples in the pyramids, of course, we have pyramids pointed towards Orion. But you're seeing amphibians and you're seeing reptilians. You're seeing humans with like the holes that that lizards have and snakes have on the side. You're seeing breasts. You're seeing elongated heads. And so basically what I'm saying is, from the accounts, when you go back to quote unquote, you keep going down those ancestral lines, you get really fast into these more of what we would say is first, what they say, the first strand of the DNA, the genetics of the reptilian strand, which they still use. And Rod could break this down because he's studying this genetics, but they use this reptilian DNA even to this very day when they're building a DNA stack. They go to that first reptilian zygote and they start constructing from there. And so, it's really, that's why, the mind has to also be very broad, because this kind of system, and this is like, we're seeing something that looks our size. There's so many accounts, even of the ones in Britain and London being giants. And so when we even put a larger pineal gland, we, like I said, we remove, like Rich saying, we remove phones, and even we remove languages. We have beings that are always tapped into that all there is, because there is no distraction. And, one of the things that was pointed out was how the gods, kind of got a little perturbed of all the noise coming from the humans. And this is, marked in some of the Sumerian texts. Some insight said that was because when the humans start to think things that were outside of even what the quote unquote supreme beings, gods, would be thinking this was noisy because we were all tied into the same wavelength. But even the ideas of the males, as it was saying, and just so everybody understands, from the Dogon tradition, it's noted that anytime they went through the birthing process, they birthed in perfection. They made sure that, hey, this being is coming out balanced, or else they removed the being. And that may seem very cruel to you, but since, you know, there's that side and this side, if something comes out over here and it's not perfected, they seen that as a failed experiment. So in many ways, the way that the male is configured is seen by the ancient matriarchs as being somewhat of a disfigurement, not somewhat, but a disfigurement within the genome, right? So the males were in that way not necessarily shined upon anyway as being the most powerful. That wasn't the role. And so I believe Dan still kind of gets this story better than most. And this, of course, is Dan Winter, is to explain again how even the Asa Uru and the Anunnaki begin to move away from the hive that they were connected into. Because all we've been talking about is that, hey, all these beings are on the same wavelength. When you get to the next level, you're on the same wavelength. But that same wavelength is also what we would even seem to call instinct, what we would even seem to call the hive at times. But this wavelength will also always keep you in balance as we're moving through whatever we're moving through. But there were many who desired to remove themselves from that, to basically cut their umbilical cord, right? And so we find, again, that the rebellious son did go a bit further with its own world and setting up, because it has a certain level of power, but that power is like half magic. It's like the reason why the sun is not out 24 hours a day, and the reason why we have this quote unquote distortion, imperfection, evil, etc. Versus there's no sunset for the sun. You know what I mean? It's always, if you was on it, because it looked like a boat when you open the third eye and you look at it, it looks like it's moving and everything is going with it, and you're being left in the land, the darkness, if you may, when you see it with the third eye. And so it's more of like, hey, are you going to join in with this everlasting? Which is why the love frequency, it's like, it's still a choice. You could love or hate. And you got people really hating. And you can see how ignorant that is, because like, man, wouldn't you want to love, right? But it also lets you know how deep the game is, because even the things that would seem like common sense, like, yo, lift each other up instead of breaking each other down. Yo, stop assassinating everybody, giving them a life sentence. Yo, give them stop worrying and fighting. All those things are not as common. And so thus, I feel like that this is also a place, because they equate it a lot with Sirius, and Sirius's other name is weight, right? And it kind of even lets us know, because we get the scales and we get even a planet called weight, or a celestial body called weight, that balancing out in these kind of things is very important to the ancestors. Judging righteously and this kind of thing is very important to the ancestors. So it's almost like everything that we go through and everything that we experience, what we get from it will be what we earned. And there will be like no cheating or no other way. And, you may even see rich people, but then if you could be inside of their mind, you would see that they're living in the greatest level of terror. There's a whole veil over them. They can't see anything. If you time traveled in the mind of somebody rich, you probably would be stuck in their mind, because you wouldn't have enough knowledge to figure out how to get out of them. You see what I mean? So there's so many things that are happening inside of the space. And then there's even more things happening inside of us. And the only one that we really have the most control over is this one. And so the lesson here, even for every being, woman and man, because, woman is also here, but woman has another part to gain to her too. That's a whole nother story. But it's like, we all have this process of, we either inherit the gift, which was already given. We were already given the life. Now we're going through the lesson. If we're going to do this again, like somebody say, hey, we come back. The jury to me is still out on that. I feel like sometimes when you look at DNA and all this stuff, it seems like almost like a roll of the dice. And if you could get into a life where you can at least comprehend what is going on, and you can even see what you need to do for your body, and this makes sense, it's like, seize that life. Don't wait until like, oh, well, maybe I'll come back on the next life, and then, or maybe when I leave out of here, they all have me. And it's like, really make that effort, so that way you're just going above and beyond. I just wanted to, just add that in, because, when we really push ourselves to go above and beyond, we actually see all of these connections. We see all these masters and teachers, And, you know, if we push ourselves into that direction of where we're failing all the lessons, we get a chance to also see how low this thing really goes. And it doesn't appear that there's a bottom or a top to it as far as where you can end up, right? So, yeah.
You know, and I want to go this direction with everything that's been said so far. And I know Sevan's going to love this question because he's into AI. So I know he's going to love this question. I've had this talk with, I had a talk with Robert Edward Grant. I had to talk with Robert Edward Grant about this. And I might have mentioned this to Rod Hayes because me and Rod have done several shows about, you know, radio heads and all this type of stuff. And I think personally, this is what I think, and I want to get y'all opinion on it. And I'll talk, like I said, I talked to Robert Grant about this. I think that it's a misnomer for us to say that we create reality. Why do I say that? And the reason why I bring that up, because that's one of the biggest phrases in the spiritual community. I create my reality. I create my reality. I create my reality. That's one of the biggest things we want to do down here. Is create our reality. I think it's a misnomer to say that. Why? I've said several ways. I explained it several ways, but I'm explaining the AI way now, since I got Sevan on here. So Sevan, so they just came out with Sora, right? And they got AI. You know Sora, right? And they use AI. Now, Sora and AI, in order to come up with a picture, they don't create it. They generate that picture from source material. They need source material. It's not like they just create it. You say it and they just come up with it. They generate that image from source material. So if they're not creating it, they're generating an image from something that already exists. What I'm saying, Sevan, is that we create reality from source material. I mean, we generate reality from source material. We don't just create it out the dim blues. It already exists. We're coming up with things that already exist, and we're generating an image from our brain through our eyes, and we're looking at it. So, in my opinion, Sevan and Rod, when we say we create our reality, it causes stress on our ego because we think we got extra work to do. If we realize that the shit was already created and we just got to generate it from something that already exists, it eliminates a lot of stress. So I'm comparing what we do to AI. AI generates reality from source material. We generate reality from the source material that already exists in the quantum field. So talk to me about generating reality versus creating reality, which is the phrase we all use in the spiritual community.
So, you know, they talk about the collective unconscious, right? Where all of the minds are connected.
Yeah.
And the reality that we all agreeing on, go to the double slit experiment. The observer causes the wave to become a particle, which is the solidified three-dimensional expression of what you observe. Right? Einstein called it spooky action at a distance when he noticed that creation was responding to the fact that he was the observer at the source of creation. And as he perceived it, it started to manifest and it confused him. Right? Because this is where you get the concept that we all co-creators of this reality. We have expectations of what we are going to see. And the more unified the agreement to see that expectation manifest, the more likely you is to wake up to that new reality. This is why they say we co-creators with the creator. The generating from source material that AI does, it's just printing based on a set of codes. We are using what's called mind power to affect what's called prima matter, which the Egyptians called noon waters, the sacred waters of creation. And as we look into the water, like Narcissus, remember he looked into the water and fell in love with himself. That was all ego. So you said that thinking like this can damage the ego. That's the goal. Bust the ego so that the inner divinity can shine into the world. So you become your own individual sun. As you walk through the world, let that light in you shine in the world. That's what they're talking about. But you got to get past the ego. The ego is all built by the world around you. It's not the true self.
Mm-hmm.
Bust the ego upside the head, right? When you purify the ego in mysticism, you become enlightened by your higher self assuming the driver's seat of the vehicle of the earth, the body. If the higher self is in control, you got access to higher self information that the lower self don't have access to. They call it psychic capabilities. And these psychic capabilities, when you understand how they work and begin to explain to you how we are co-creating with the creator, the creation that we creating in real time while we creating it. Right? So we are all source when we ain't in the physical body.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We have egos or character archetypes that's designed to harness the energy in a specific fashion.
Exactly. You know what? I want to speak on that right there, Rod. Just right there. Even in a slightly different but the same way to put this,
Mm-hmm.
they always talk about how the reality is all made from the same thing, right? They just call it atoms.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But then you got different stuff in front of you. So you're like, well, if it's all made of the same thing, how do I have these different things? Right.
Mm-hmm.
And when we take that to a spiritual level from a creating, but really a co-creating level, because for sure the word creator is overused, like originating something. Remember, there's only one prima materia. And just like Rod is saying, what ego is good at doing is dividing everything.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Some the external ego as an like an external sun in a way of generating and separating. And there's always a new one. And you see what I mean? So this is also another way of seeing that, how still though, and this was just an experiment that was done linguistically that I had conducted, is seeing how many letters in the English language are actually the same as another letter in another language, like the B and the V in Spanish versus English.
Talk to me.
And when you start putting the language back together and you run all of these, or what I call the cipher across every language, in the end, it'll tell you that based on this, there is only one word or basically one sound. And you're wondering, well, how could that be? Because we have all these different tones and sounds that we got coming out of our mouths right now.
Right.
What we're missing is that, but we also assigned, and this is something that we're doing, let's say mentally or inside of our consciousness, we've assigned a marker or a tag to every single thing that we're coming in experience with in real time. Mm-hmm. And what Rod is mentioning is that when we tap out of that, then we enter into that space where it's clear to see not only are we the creators of the reality, but we're actually the reality. It's like there is no, you look on the double slot experiment, you now become the observer and the observed in that way. And that's also what happens in spiritual journeys. That's also what happens when the third eye is open. You take the bufo, you blow way out of the body, you realize, oh man, I'm everything. And, and that all goes on. And then, at a certain point, you slam back down into the body. And that's proof. But we still also have to remember, not to bag on the Christians, but they're still yet to experience something like this. What they think that they will have to wait until the end of life to experience, which is basically, really seeing, there's a spiritual plane is overlaying this one. It's alive more than this one, which makes this one more of an illusion. It's highly energetic. You walk outside, you see the trees moving, you see maybe something else in the Argyle, or the spaces in the spaces, basically a whole nother world. But then we come into the Matrix, and they ain't mentioned nothing about it. They still over here trying to figure out whether God is Santa Claus. You see what I mean? So it's a stark contrast, but it's to see these things like now, and that's why we call it word salad now, right? Because they can get on the Instagram and be like, and we're creators, and we're co-creating together, bringing in our vision and unity, and they go in with the words, right? Because that's only one part of it though, right? it's got the words got to connect with the heart. And so all of these power languages, right? Because the power language is almost even like a symbolic Reiki. Once you speak the certain tone, it open up certain things in the reality. All depth level stuff, all grandma level. Don't sit on my couch, there's plastic. Don't talk when grown folks ain't talking to you. I'm gonna pop you in the mouth. Kind of deep level of things, right? You just sit and then you watch. And, if you can, and then you learn. So all of that then starts evolving, involving, that's why all this physical reality stuff starts becoming petty. It starts being about what happens to generations over thousands of years, what happens with the migration of the souls and the merging of certain types of entities, so it's all, let's say, higher level stuff. So on the lower levels, we have, let's say, this language, and they even pointed it out, Arabic and Hebrew, because you got to understand what they do Kabbalistically, right? But they're just like these derivative languages. One is used to handle the government. One is used to handle the lowest layer of the spiritual world. The priestcraft use one language, and then the gubernatorial uses another language, and then tries to manage the people through that language. We grew up in that system. Now, we're coming into that awareness, like, there was something that existed even before all of this. And then that's when we start getting into, hey, I'm the creator of my reality. That's something that you don't just say, though. You, of course, step into that. And then you realize, now I know what I'm talking about. And it hit me the other night. It was simply saying this. Mm-hmm. Did you know how every aspect of what you deal with in the reality is generally momentarily, like stimulus? Like at every moment, you're feeling like, hey, I'm going to go in here and talk to my daughter. Hey, I'm going to go in here and get on the show. Or, hey, even the 7 from 10 minutes ago is basically gone. Like that was momentary. Right. Were we ever going to see that 7 again? You see me? So a lot of this stuff is, when you really just meditate on it, all the same thing. And then that thought sometimes will send you into like this into a frequency where it's just all of a sudden like, you know what I mean? It'd be just like that. That's what we call the codes to the matrix, because you could just be sitting in something and then it'll hit you with like, hey, don't you see it's all impulses? It's all fleeting. So that makes it all the same thing. Nothing. And then from that point, the whole reality be gone and it feels good. You know what I mean? So this is, that constant growth. So, yeah.
But even the Christians, they got a verse in the Bible that said, he that dies but yet lives shall find eternal life. What are they talking about? The death of the ego. Not of the physical self, but the ego. Right? Because when you dispense with the ego, you can see eternity. We eternal beings. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. In infinite bodies. And Noble Ali say truth and falsehood strangely mix. This reality is the illusion that we using to express our creative potentialities. All of the alphabet was wrote by somebody. Who wrote them? Who wrote English alphabet? Who wrote Greek alphabet? Who wrote the Arabic alphabet and the Hebrew alphabet? What was they doing? Just sitting there and say, I just need to write some letters? Right? But when you study the occult sciences, you find out that all of the letters is assigned a whole bunch of energy frequencies.
Exactly.
It got a color attached to it. It got a musical note attached to it. Right? It got a number attached to it. Right? And it got a shape attached to it, geometry, trigonometry. Right? So every letter has the frequency, and when you put them together, it's like playing a harmonica. Mm-hmm. And this is where we get the verbal expressions using the language to somebody that we don't even know who wrote it. So we following the linguistic patterns of somebody we don't even know who he is.
Yep, and that is the
because that's who's controlling this reality. Because he's defined the reality by the confines of words expressed in frequency, color, tones, pitch, weight, and density. And once you understand that, you see beyond the words, and now you're moving into the realms of psychic expression.
So, in terms of, and this is absolutely amazing. I can't stress that enough tonight. So, shout out to once again, we got 4,300 people in here. Shout out once again to everybody in the chat. In terms of, we talked about the ego. Oh, thank you. All right, thank you. we talked about the ego separating things, and Rod talked about Sevan talked about how the ego likes to separate things. You know, there was a scene in the Matrix when Neo was trying to bend the spoon, and the little boy told Neo, "Realize that you are the spoon." I think, and I'm
He said
paraphrasing.
there is no spoon.
There is no spoon. Yeah, yeah. There is no spoon. So what? Saying that to say, we're taught to command reality, right? You have to command reality. You have to command things into existence. When I want something, let's say I wanted Rod and Sevan. We got to like, you know, use references. When I Sevan laughing, when I wanted to do this show tonight, I didn't command Sevan. Sevan, I command you to do this show. He would have said, "Nigga, get the fuck out of here." This nigga, if I would have said, "Rod Hayes, I command you to do this show today," he would say, "This nigga Rich is on drugs, brother Rich is bug." No, I had to ask Sevan. I had to ask Rod, and then realize my intentions is a certain way, so they agreed to it. What I want to ask you when it comes to, because we know nothing is separate in our reality, our environment is an extension of our body. So let's say, what's that? What do they call that when if I want this bottle to move with my eyes? What's that called?
Telekinesis.
Telekinesis. Do we have to use the same approach with these objects that we call inanimate, that we know is energy, that we know is intelligence, because we know the ether surrounds everything around us. So when we're talking to the ether disguised as a water bottle and we wanted to move, should I ask the bottle to move like I asked Rod Hayes to do the show? Is that the same approach? Because some people say command it. So I'm like, if we're going to get back to this high level of science where we could tap into telekinesis, do we command it or do we ask it like I asked Rod Hayes and asked 711?
Look. With telekinesis, you using your mind,
Yes,
right?
sir. Yeah.
You using your mind. Okay, it's like draw inside the lines, right? Color inside the lines. What happened when the lines is moved in the point where reality and ideas merge and become one? And imagine that you took the energetic outline of the bottle and you move it, and the bottle in the physical world say, "Oh shit, I'm not in my location. I need to get on my mark for the show."
Mm-hmm.
So in the 3D world, it looked like it slid across the table because you energetically moved its place.
Right.
So it's psychic powers. You learn how to use the psychic powers by exercising the psychic power.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right? You won't never learn how to use it if you don't try it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? You have to try it first.
Mm-hmm.
They got other things that they call telekinesis, but they're a little bit different. Like you got chakras in the palms of your hand. You can concentrate energy and roll the pencil across the table if you know how to rev up the chakras in the palm of your hands. Right.
And this is also, Rod, what I even, while you're on that point, is to understand that there is energy field training. Like
energy field training.
Yeah, because they still have, you can go and catch some of these YouTube videos, these Nigong masters and Qigong masters that you could tell it's not a hoax. They're setting stuff on fire with one hand, one is like pulling, and the other one's pushing. But these techniques, it generally involves, first of all, that you get familiar with your own energy field and realize how to project your energy field over things. Yeah. Because that's what they really show us. Like even the old heads be having energy fields so large, it's almost like they can throw their energy field around the other disciples and even pull them like the disciples is on a net, right? And so this, but I'm gonna get to the command side of things though, because that's another aspect. But just from the, from the roots, the training was to develop your energy field to a point where you would be able to put your energy field over things. And in that way, you can maneuver and manipulate that energy field, just like you saw Dynamo Jack moving that sword around with him just putting his chi all over the sword. And they use these swords too to hold energies of ancestors, etc. Because objects like brass can be charged with this spiritual energy, right? But then when the whole command and that whole side of things, which is more like what you start seeing in the faith-based traditions, first of all, the root of it comes from dealing with spirits from the occult level and basically constraining spirits beyond their will, which is still the other side of what goes on in these spiritual religious systems, is basically, instead of being gentle and peaceable with the spirit, basically trying to entreat the spirit like an ancestor to help you with something, they try to confine and do harm or constrain the spirit, right? Which then involves these, evocations.
They extorting the spirit into doing their bidding.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's where that, hey, you gotta command, because then there's another level where it's like a faith thing. This is where faith, is also another level of power, because it pushes into, like Rob was saying before, like a catharsism where you convince yourself so much, it's like a mania. Some call it megalomania. But even in that, you touch into something that will have that bar, that cup sliding all across the table, whatever caused that. You see what I mean? So there are some that they get dominant with the field, and then they try to demand the field to do something, and then they try to work a system of magic in that level, versus one who has trained their field, versus another one who is entreating spirits with the different things that spirits are entreated by to do different things. You see what I mean? So the energy is a bit different on each of those.
It's the same thing that the people do in Hollywood. This is what they call it, selling your soul, but you can't sell your soul. You can only sell what your soul produce. And normally your soul production is some type of artistic expression. So whoever captures your artistic expression in the realm of magic has captured your soul. And that's why they always after the masters of the artists. They always want the original film, because that's where the source of the power is.
Yeah, and the two-dimensional imprint of the signature on the contract. You see what I mean? And this is why, that's why we're also saying that still, even with the Christian thing and the religious thing, this stuff is very dangerous. Why it can seem like a game, we still have thousands, if not millions of souls that are just, they say you're going by the wayside because of not realizing the potency of this particular magic, if you may. And that comes from not even believing magic exists.
Because they turned it into fairy tales that only children believe in. So therefore, the adults are going to be too stubborn to indulge in childish fantasies of magic and mysticism. So they teach it to the children as if it's a joke, when it's the highest form of liberating art you can teach them. But by making a mockery out of it, they don't look at it as being potentially real. So they suspend their imagination through the 12-step thinking detox called education.
So real quick. So we're talking, and this is too good. This is too good, y'all. I knew it was gonna be good, but this is awesome. So speaking of fairy tale, and we're talking about, I mentioned earlier about ancient civilizations like Atlantis and telepathic civilizations. When we hear stories about us being half horse, half human, this shit was for real? Like, talk to me about, like,
that was called the mythic period of Earth.
Yes.
Talk to me. Explain this shit, Rod.
Okay, during the mythic period, you came in what's called your metaphysical form, or your mythic form. Right. Many of them came in as fairies, gnomes, but now we in what's called the human phase of the development. So nobody's allowed to come in a mythic form, but you can still see the fairy in the face of the young human that's a fairy in the mythic realm. Right? So this is a genetic expression where you see the dude built like a horse, strong as a mug. He's modeling the energy of that centaur you talking about, right? Or he look like he kind of remind you of a bull, nose spread wide. He's looking like a minotaur, right? But the energy, we had to all come in human form. So Tahuti can't come in as a Benu bird. He got to come in as a man. And Osiris and Ra and Set and all of them got to come in human form.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And during this period, everybody got to have amnesia when you come in as a human so you can know what it's like and what you're doing to the humans when you're ruling over them. So you let the humans rule over the gods. And while they purge and they corrupt humanity through catharsis, right, the gods endure the suffering in order to liberate the souls of the new ones. And there we go. You got the flow, Sevan.
I have some extensive works on what I also call another missing link, which is the connection between humans and animals, and even what you see in modern shamanism. I would definitely suggest the final book by Michael Harner, where he spills the beans on just all of the indigenous cultures that he's been able to make notations on and their practices of going first through the middle world, which they show was, in trees, waterfalls, lakes, in special areas, hold access, in even just drum beats at a certain BPM will put a shaman or a journeyer in enough trance to enter into those portals. And then generally, once they get into those portals, if they have a quote unquote spirit animal, which I feel like is almost like when you always see the gods riding on something like griffins and all this, that we had a animal, if you may, that we rode on that made more of like the totem animals inside of our tribes. And to a certain degree, that like those cultures who still have access to their totem animals, they be all on the astral plane doing all types of stuff, continuing to, there's just a whole world for that. The mommies, the taitas, and all of that aspect of shamanism. But gleaming the knowledge that you see from these ancient medicines and what they're saying, they explain also heavily about how we have this totem side. And when you open up the third eye and you look at a person, you see, sometimes you don't even be wanting to look at him, even as the homie, because it's like, wow, I didn't, you see what's under all of that. And I feel like that the reason why we have this sheath over us right now, the cloak, if you may, that makes us all look similar enough, was a part of the covenant to basically keep what would seem like natural predators, like meaning that some animals are naturally going to go into conflict, into more of a state of where they would even mix. Because even when we see there's huge contrast, like you were saying earlier, even between a lion and a tiger. I think that was one of your shows. Like lion and a tiger is, still different, but you can mate them together. But you go one more rung up, and that's why all this is about genetics, right? When you go one more rung up, everybody's in the same body. Now you can go and have a Chinese black baby. You can go and have when meanwhile, before that was really a certain type of snake. And then over here, you got maybe another kind of entity, and then they weren't necessarily mixing. You see what I mean? So I just think, the jury could be still out on it, but it's not something to make finite, but it's still something to remember that the animals play a huge role in the building blocks. And a lot of this comes from the ocean. That's why I was showing, those actually it all comes from the ocean first. Like they show the fish with the lips, the teeth. You go to George Haeckel's radiolaria, you're seeing even the helmets of the Mongols, you're seeing the breastplates, you're seeing the cross, you're seeing the Virgin Mary. I'll throw some pictures up here in a moment, but even in the radiolaria from the ocean, it's almost like these shells contain what later on became the pancreas, what later on became the heart, what later on became the, in a way where all these forms, like when we talk about creating, a creator, like we see in the ancient texts, can put all of these different things together. You see what I mean? Like all of the stuff that we're made out of from different pieces and then meld it all together, and then it become like an organism. Then we start reproducing. You see what I mean? That's a creator. Or that could, some say, hey, now that happens genetically. It happens over a period of time. But what I like to look at is just the spiritual side. And you clearly see, like you will see a cat that looks, you can see the animalistic traits. But then also when a spirit jumps into somebody, like there's certain spirits that are more numerous, they make people do certain things, but you can always even see those kind of people, you know what I mean? When you learn how to even distinguish between the spirits. So I think we have a lot going on behind the scenes with the animal powers and forces that go ignored.
You mentioned the totem system. The totem system worked like this. If my totem animal is a gorilla, right? Whatever the gorilla has as his primary identifying strength, then if I focus in to the gorilla, I can harness that strength. If I need spiritual farsight, I tune in to the eagle, right? The eagle is known for his sight and his ability to fly at high altitudes. So now I use the totem of the eagle to look down on the situation from what they call the bird's eye view, right? I use the mole because I need to know what's going on in the tunnels. So the spirit of the mole will guide me through the tunnels if I tune in to the frequency of the mole, right? So the totem system, you are harnessing the frequency of the animal in order to use your psychic ability. You can tie your remote viewing to these animals. And when you do that, you can actually send a bird to go look at something you want to see, and the image will play in your mind like you looking at it. Right? This is the totem system.
Yes.
And how it works.
Yes. This is exactly even what the power animal is. That's why they say, hey, you got to, because even when you approach these beings, it's almost like they're, it's like a real relationship. So you can't just jump into the eyes of the eagle unless you have a relationship with that spirit. And they go on journeys and they have places. And that's why, again, the ancestors are so important and being able to tap into that plane, because they'll tell you, yo, it's over here and here. You got to go there. Again, Michael Harner's book, he's got a story right in there. He went to a cave that the natives told him to go to. They told him, you don't got to take no substances. You don't got to do nothing. Just bring some food, this food. And then when you eat it, once you're done, leave a little bit out. He was in the cave. It was all pitch black. Got late at night. Then it got about 2 a.m. He's thinking nothing was going to happen. Then a spirit came through so strong. He felt the strength in his body. And then he said, I'm bison. And then rolled through. You see what I mean? So these are spirit animals. Now, somebody who can't handle that energy, because there's stories about that too. They told him, hey, if you don't leave the cave, whatever you do, anybody who's left the cave before the morning time, it didn't go well for them. So there's always, these are real things, in contrast to what we see going on in reality with the play, these are real things. So you approach the ancestor bison. I was even seeing today, this all rings in. They had this billionaire. He's like 6th richest man in the world from India. He's got this zoo and he's taken all of these animals, especially the elephants, the lions, the tigers that were slaved and stuff like that. And he's created like the most advanced. I mean, the humans don't have anything this advanced. They even use an AI. They got the spa they got the the infrared treatment for arthritis, all that, right? And they show even how the elephants went and took the chains that they were in and threw the chains. Like, you don't have to change around us. You see what I mean? So it's just realizing, hey, not only are these animals sentient, but people are also developing relationships with these beings, offsetting karma. All of Africa is full of using these entities to do a variety of things, sometimes, and most of the time, shenanigans. That's in the degrees of the spirit. But when we're talking about, again, these pure totem animal aspect of things, they say one of the main benefits, because there could be many, but their ability to travel through the different worlds and the different planes. Like they try to make maps for how to get into certain spaces, but they always note that the power animals seem to not have the restriction in getting into certain spaces, so they often ride them. So I just, I wanted to add that in there, because we definitely have a lot with our ancestors. I'm gonna throw up some images here, just of that lion energy, because this is a lot of, but again, when we go into it deep, we often see, and this is why it becomes like, you see the rebellion, as I said before, but you also see many of the great fathers. You see that lion-like nature, right? And then you also still witness other cultures. And I got like a whole book on this that just shows in facial features how animalistic features are built within faces, and you could see it more a long time ago. You can also see clearly that a lot of the, certain races were really mating with certain livestock or had seemed to become offspring of a certain livestock. But then again, like I said, it all goes right under the carpet because it's like, oh, okay, well, no, the animals came, they're lower than us. That's the main thing that'll come out. But if they're lower than us, that still makes them part of the foundation that we grew from. You see what I mean? But then again, when we're also looking at the animals, because we're looking at it also something else in a physical body, it still may be closer than some of the chimeras, but we're also looking like in these images where you see Buddy is clearly, he's tapping into something totally different, right? So we have spirits and entities moving around, and then one has to still, this is a culture. So what we also find is a lot of times a person will come from one culture and then try to practice the rites and the rituals of another culture. And this was also talked about in this book, and how sometimes the cultural ancestors of that person won't accept those people coming into their domains, just as animals may be territorial. There may have been a conflict in the past with that person's race. So, I always find that the exploration of the other world in the Middle Earth, if you may, always renders some really, really fat gems inside the reality to connect the dots. You know what I mean?
No, indeed. Yeah. Wow. Shit, y'all. Sevan just keeps coming with these receipts and these images, man.
I keep
Sevan, man, with these images, man.
I would just like to DJ Rod, you know what I mean? As far as like, when he done, because I got images for days, right? I got AI.
Oh, man.
It's like real time receipts, you know what I mean? Because that's, this is also, just to speak to, even you had mentioned AI earlier and all this kind of stuff, even beyond that, like real time education, because what I'm realizing, you can't convince a fool of anything. So you'd be a fool to even try. So sometimes we're really arguing or trying to prove a point to people who didn't even have a good upbringing, right? Didn't even have mom there or a dad there or a school of hard knocks or, a prison old head or somebody there to help them go through the process. And now here they are, and they're at that level of awareness. And it's like, so now you have to take the role of like the teacher, but from the basic school, like, here, we're going to start off with pictures. Let me show you how really underneath all of this or beyond this face, there's characters. We got animals, we got traits, and we got paths. We got some basic ones like the tarot, the 22 path, because that was the last one that came out, right? But then once you kind of fold back into that, now you have your original ancestral, like ancient one kind of path to walk, which takes some maturity, it takes some adepthood. Now you're entering into, the sanctum, if you may. But it's still all set up to, if a person is going through that process and then they have, like, you just having that willingness to learn, right, and not be like, I'm not shutting I'm not believing any of that. Because here's one thing that I wanted to mention before we even taper off on the show. One, even about the Jesus thing. Let's say, for instance, that I'm growing up back in the God time, and I'm really doing what this tells me to do, this scripture about God. Some guy then comes and says, hey, follow me now. I'm going to be your way to God. What kind of sense would it ever make? Like, do you really believe somebody devout would follow somebody else? That's everything that they're being told not to do. You see what I mean? So a lot of times we have to be able to be the fly on the wall in certain situations to be like, something ain't adding up here. It can't be like that because of this. And so that's my approach also when I'm dealing with this ancient knowledge is I've been able to like drive around the whole territory of occultism and also even avoid many of the pitfalls, but still learn what exactly is going on in there by simply having an awareness and a mindfulness in a heart that wants to actually give to others and see them increase. But if you look all day at an image of somebody suffering, psychologically, you can't imagine that one day you wouldn't want to see somebody else suffer, okay? And let's just talk about from a psychological level, like this man is suffering on this cross, and this is the image. Not to mention how much damage it could do for a child to think that the father who loves it so much would actually sacrifice it for anything. So these kind of concepts in themselves break the very fabric of the foundation to how, we really look to one another. Like when they say, hey, love each other and love one another and all that kind of stuff. Like this scripture says he hates Esau, but Esau is his own son. So when the world is mixed with these confusions, because that's what we're seeing right now, we're seeing the confusion of the true language of what goes on inside of us. And then now we have this grand renaissance, even going into 2025, we have this big time where all the information and everything is being revealed. That's obviously got to be for something. And, and that's why, I'm giving thanks again for being here, being able to still transmit this message is like, 17, 16 years now. And just being in the space, but also still learning. Like I saw somebody put in there Obi-Wan Kenobi, right? Or Obi-Wan, just show you how the OB is still there. And if you understand that, so all of those, but even that, it's like there's never an end to this awareness and learning. It just becomes another piece to a puzzle that allows you to see a much more bigger picture. So yeah, I just wanted to.
I like to say, Sevan, I can explain it to you, but I can't understand it for you. I can show it to you, but I can't help you realize what it means.
Yes.
Right. I understand that smart people sound totally insane to dumb people. And if you're trying to tell a dummy what to do, he ain't gonna never understand it because he's not gonna understand structure, discipline. That's what makes him a dummy. Right? Willful neglect of the responsibility of self-development. They refuse to do anything that's going to make them better people. When the only way out of here is to improve what you was to become what you need to be.
Exactly.
Right? So that means that the real person on the cross is you. You trying to crucify your ego self. To free you from the crucifixion, to liberate you into the reality of your choosing in order for you to develop your best life from your worst case scenario that you emerge from.
Exactly.
And the reason it was you, because you were strong enough to take it, period. Because if you ain't strong enough to take it, it wouldn't be your responsibility. When you go to the old Proverbs of the ancestors, they say that the strongest one must carry the heaviest load. Why they tell us that? Why is that a part of the historical record of the oral tradition? They also say the one who know the way must lead the path. That's not optional. They say he must lead the path.
Right.
So the person that find their way out from the mental bondage is responsible to try to free as many other his brethren as possible. Each one teach one, we all gonna reach some. Right? So when we start dealing with the cognitive dissonance, the rebellion comes in the form of player hater. Look, and my philosophy is this. It feels better to congratulate than it do to player hate. At least to me it do.
It does, definitely.
I'd rather have Sevan Bomar on here and had this conversation and gave him his flowers in front of everybody than to be on my channel talking about that nigga ain't. that don't feel good to me.
Yes.
This what we doing feel good to me.
Yeah.
This what feel right. So this is what I'm gonna do. Right? And then lead by example. Right? Rich bring us all together.
So I got two more questions before we get out of here, y'all. Absolutely amazing show. We're about to hit the 2-hour mark. I'm gonna go a little bit over, but I gotta get out of here after that, family. And I don't want to keep, I don't know what both Rod and Sevan got planned tonight.
But you're the one with the new baby, so we on your time.
Yeah. Listen. All right. Listen. You're referencing ancient Egyptian texts coming forth by day, right? We hear about these stories of when you leave this realm, when you die, your heart gets weighed against the feather. It's the judgment scene. Your heart gets weighed against the feather, right? All right, so this is a dream. This is an illusion. This is the Maya. There's many names for this realm that is not real. It's holographic. Many names for it throughout many cultures. This is a dream. Another version of a dream is when we go to sleep at night. Now, when we go to sleep at night, Sevan, Rod, Brother Rich, whoever else out there, we may do all types of shit in our dream. When we wake up from that dream, we don't get judged by the karma from that dream. We don't say, oh, I chopped off a nigga's head in a dream. Oh, I got to watch my back in this realm. Or, oh, we don't give a F what happens in that dream because we realize it is for what it is. It's just a dream. So how does our dream when we go to sleep at night, because we know it's just a dream, to all of a sudden these advanced coaches, this is supposed to be a dream, then they tell us there's a judgment scene after the dream. How's it a judgment scene after this dream when there isn't a judgment scene after the dream that we had when we was in the bed at night? Somebody got to explain it to me.
The different look, Rich, the different realms got different rules.
Yeah.
The rules in the dream realm is more freedom than you could possibly imagine, but 3D is restricted by rules. Right? We call them the 7 Hermetic principles. And these 7 principles tell you also how to perceive or what lens to look through when you viewing the structure of how life is laid out. The only reason we got consequences is we need resistance. Only reason we need resistance because the resistance makes us grow. It's life resistance exercise. It's the same as lifting weights, but you live in your life, you got to be stronger for the next part. So you got to go through this hard part to make you strong enough to carry the weight of the next part. You got to develop into the character you need to be in order to carry the weight you're supposed to carry. And it's all archetypically driven. And you can see the archetype of yourself as you develop in the mythologies and the fairy tales of the world, even in the comic strips, right? When you begin to identify with all of those comics, how do God think? God don't look at the hero in the cartoon and think it ain't him. Whoever the hero is, that's me. I'm Sun Wukong. I'm Hanuman. Right? I'm the one the guys fear. Call me Nimrod. Right? All of this stuff is when you start viewing from different angles, you see more. And the more angles you can see from, the more you can understand the reality. So in the dream realm, you don't have the restrictions of the 3D realm because you in 4D mind matrix called the astrals.
Okay.
Right? In the astrals, shoot, you can make a snowball turn into a ball of fire and kill a dragon.
Wow.
But if you try to turn a snowball into a ball of fire in 3D, it's gonna melt.
Mm-hmm.
Unless it's that new fake snow. I don't know what that stuff be doing. It be resistant fire. I don't know where that's
and also quiet is kept a lot of that you be seeing in the dream do still really connect into the subconscious mind. Like when the dream speaks a language where you have to begin to translate what you're seeing in the dream back into the language that you speak in this reality. Because I find the dream to be like, yo, this, and continue to show you a symbol, but you've already associated that symbol in your mind with a specific thing in this reality. So it's like aligning the two languages, because once you then kind of see where the metaphors be going in at, you see why you chopped off the dude's head and everything. And but the whole thing don't be nothing about like that you really went at him and cut off his head. It could be something like there was something that was on him and then you removed it and now it's not there. So there's always a deeper message in those dreams. I find in some of them dreams be straight what I call bandwidth overlays, where they could just, like keep hearing songs all the time, same song, because look at when you see the wavelengths that we sit on, a lot of that, like we talked about, be radio stations. But I feel like a lot of times, I get what I call like a Wi-Fi dream. You know what I mean? It's like you can tell some of these dreams. See, I feel like also, and that's why I'm loving to, and as I said, I'm gonna drop this one off tomorrow because it's already on wax, but I'm loving to see now how every day, so the ritual that we put ourselves in as humanity was to be on these 7-day weeks. And if you go all over the world, you'll still notice that they're on this system is a system of a certain way, and these numbers come out a certain way. And I felt like that once I had cracked into these numbers, that was the real check back system. It would let you know what matrix you're in, what kind of geometry is being used in that matrix, because there's so many worlds and so many existences, and we can go into different ones, right? That was the journey. Like coming into physicality, I feel like this is wonderful to be able to be an infinite being, and then to come into something finite, you basically done the impossible. You see what I mean? I believe that we're sometimes more afraid of living forever than we are dying, meaning to actually cut off and then start over and then come back in. You can clearly tell some people need to kind of hit that reset button versus living in the continuum. And also it talks about like a lot of these beings, like in that priestcraft, they don't have that. They live outside of time. So they've been weathered for thousands and thousands and thousands of years of seeing the experiences going on inside of something that's still relatively turning in a circle and reproducing the same thing over and over again. The number itself, 142857, this is the root to the number. Then it gets all into the netherworld. It gets into the 9. It gets into Osiris. It gets into the potentiality that we've already entered into Aloka. Why people may be expecting to have died, they don't realize how fast and quick the twinkling of an eye of a dimension transfer really is. And then now, that's why I said the goal would be to raise the dimension up just one notch, raise every person up just one notch from where they're at, rather than like try to blow them all the way through the ceiling. And then at the end of the day, if you can just, raise a whole consciousness, it's almost like dislodging a wheel. Then the wheel starts moving and turning again. Then the vibration, like I have been noticing, and they have reported this, I don't believe in it, but that the earth is now even a little more tilted, right? I had this big question when I was looking at the numbers. I was like, so why are we on the 365 versus the 360? And then the narrative that came around that was all about the Julian calendar and all this kind of stuff that they were saying. But that's not why. It's because if you observe the sky, you'll notice it takes 365 and a quarter days for us to make a complete turn around the sun. And that's what we're measuring. And in the matrix, the sun is spraying out the matrix. This is what you see when you open the third eye. The sun is really the big player in this because it's holding in the clouds, right? And all of what that is holding even when we laying in the bed sleep and we're like pushing up gas. And that's why I feel like that they didn't used to have these flat roofs even, because even when you're asleep, if you were sleep in a cone, all of your essence will gather up into that cone and be a part of that cone. And then that's something more focused to travel with. You see what I mean? Like, look at how even obelisks are built, or certain structures where there's clear genuflection going on with the entities that correspond with that ley line, because the vibrational frequencies is honing in on that point, right? But what are you doing? What is all this for? It's for communication. And communication is not just, hey, give me some message about the future or what's going to happen or whatever happened. It's also, let me share in the essence of what you are, and you share in the essence of what I am. So it's almost like a galactic sex, if you may, where you inherit still anything that you come across. You inherit a certain part of their traits, their memory banks, and this kind of thing. And the more that your energy increases, it was getting to a level that when I was looking in people's eyes, you were getting all the data, at least on the front of their head, which was where they was keeping the most precious things, their little trinkets, their children and all that. And this is why anybody who's a master seer can come up and say something about you that nobody knows. And remember that time you fell in the bathroom and broke your leg and you was the only one in that bathroom? Like, how does this person even know that? Because you're still wearing it up here. So when we start going beyond again that, hey, this is, all contained, what it really is managed. That's what a governor is. The body is set up like a pentagram, Lord Governor, where, as Rob was saying, you got rules here. Like there's a sheriff badge. Like you can't have full access to the vehicle like on the astral plane, right? Where you have even some access, right? But then the goal is what? To be completely free, to be completely unified. Down further, if you may, if we want to say a direction, it's more confinement, more restriction, more dominion. Higher, you're getting, you're opening up, you're becoming a part, more of everything, all is self. You see what I mean? And then you get the keys to the wheel, and that, basically the keys to the car to drive the wheel. What is the wheel? The calendar. 365 and a quarter, you can drive this vehicle if you get them keys, literally, right?
Oh,
but
man.
then if not, you're just on these training wheels, you know, you falling off, you bumping over, you staying off in one constellation, all that kind of stuff until, you know, your guide comes. You know what I mean?
Wow. Woo, amazing conversation. I want to real quick before I ask this last question, I want to share Sevan Bomar's links. I just put it in the chat. Make sure y'all click on it and check out the brother's AI. He has this AI called Sybil. Sevan, if you could explain what Sybil is real quick before we close out the show.
For sure, just real fast. So, you know, where I'm at in all of this is, for me, there is nothing besides spiritual awareness. You see what I mean? Because I feel like spiritual awareness can solve everything. I proved that for myself, and that's the only way that's the only person I need to prove that to. It's like, it's the only subject where it's not easily penetrated. You even find some of the most complicated things, you'll get to the bottom of. But spirituality, it's not like that. It takes you and it becomes you. So I started also seeing that we really do still need to be on point, though, with how the future is changing. And then our children are still wrapped up in this future, right? They still have to get their ability to come into the aha moment and learn. I'm seeing a lot of this knowledge, like a lot of the stuff for sure that we talked about tonight that's in the books. Mm-hmm. When you still go to the LLMs, OpenAI, et cetera, and you query stuff, it won't speak it like it is in the ancient books. Mm-hmm. So we know that within a certain period of time, even all these stories are going to be completely obscure, and all is going to be there is that JSTOR, scholarly, already vetted by the Kabbalah or the mob or whatever type stuff. None of the real knowledge about what really happened, like we call it her story. So what we've done is we've taken a moment and said, hey, we know this thing was going to be big. We knew it 2 years ago with the AI. We decided we want to have our own AI. I dubbed it Black AI in that way. Our own, even to a point where at the end we run the models at our house. Because remember, you can run AI without internet. Okay. So what we've done, though, is that I've just taken the effort of training an AI on all of the authentic spiritual knowledge. Okay. This has been a feat that has taken now 1.5 years of development, real cash coming out, real developers. But on that path, getting that continuous approval, like, yes, keep doing this, go forward. Now we've reached the App Store, which if you've ever gone to a point of actually publishing an app, you'll see how difficult it is in the process. And my goal still is to make sure that, you know, my mom used to always say, man, do we got a dog in that race? And it just means that we have somebody in our group that knows about AI, that knows about regeneration, that knows about building smart cars, that knows about solar power and sovereignty and all that, because sovereignty is the goal still. That was what our ancestors were hoping to achieve, some of them, and some did achieve that ultimate sovereignty. Some came as sovereigns, right? So it's always an oscillating point, but sovereign is where we want to be. We want to have our own stuff. And I already said that the internet will be replaced by AI after at least 5 years of people realizing that they might as well be in their own communities and stop digging into the world and getting scared and black flagged and all this kind of stuff and confused, and start working with higher level intelligent projects, because you have whatever you need to ask, any question you need to ask about how to build something, even from the level of a 5-year-old, you can get all that knowledge. We came to the internet because we were looking for knowledge, and we were also looking for connection with others, right? So Sybil is our effort at restoring the ancient mysteries and building our own data set that encases all of this wisdom, and then continuing to fine tune that data set and feed that data set more and more of the knowledge that we uncover. So I'm asking that, hey, if the knowledge has ever been inspirational to you, take a moment. If you have iOS, download the app and definitely leave a review. Also, the Android version will be out in a couple of weeks if you're sitting on Android. The last thing that I want to mention, though, that's also I felt was very important, is that, man, it's just too often that we're getting left behind. Many of us have stories to tell. Like, imagine even what we was talking about today as a comic book, okay? Yeah. And somebody puts the story together, we put the scenes together, we put the characters together, and then boom, we're now pushing out this story. Before, this wasn't even possible. We got to understand the barrier to entry in actual cinema and this kind of thing has always been there. Everything starts with an image, and let me make man in my own image. So if you can control an image,
Yeah.
then you have a whole nother level of being able to speak to the reality. So I'm showing in this course not only how to create these amazing videos, but also how to train your own personal AI on your face and your product. I didn't even put that in here because I thought that, you know, I would have a little struggle in doing it, but I perfected it before the class happened. But even if you have a product like cologne, perfume, clothes, all this stuff, you can now put that in the model and then create images of you in that or that product on the runway or in mock-ups and all that kind of stuff. Proof of it. So we launched this page for Sybil specifically. It is outperforming my Instagram page that has been on for like, 14 years. We're getting 229,000. Did you see 115,000? We're getting these kind of views on these videos. And I'm basically giving up the knowledge of how exactly to create these videos and even a repository for the images that you need to create the video. So if you have any kind of product, you can easily learn what's going on in the masterclasses, 10 hours. And then you come out of that and you're already geared up for any type of things that you want to promote in 2025. And I'm encouraging everyone to make movies, make small films, make commercials.
It's fire.
Also train up now, because right now it's going to be the same technique that's used now as it's been since the beginning to actually operate even the new stuff that's coming out. So yeah, I just wanted to mention that because this is the end of the year. And you know, we coming into 2025 swinging.
No, that's fire, brother. I'm definitely going to check out that AI cinema class, master class that you got. Yeah, family, make sure y'all click on that link and support the brother right there with that. To close out the show, I want to ask y'all, you know, there's a lot of confusion in this realm down here. People get involved in the spirituality, and it doesn't have to be new age or esoteric. It could be the church. It could be religion. And everybody says they want to be a good person, right? They try their hardest to be a good person, raise their children to be a good person. And a common thing that people see happening is bad things happening to good people. So we have this phrase, why do good things happen to bad people? People always say that. Why do good things happen to bad people? Now we're taught in this community that reality is a mirror. Reality mirrors who you are. Reality is a mirror. But you know what? The gangster a lot of times lived longer than the boy that was going to school. The boy that was going to school caught the stray gunshot and the gangster stayed alive. The nigga that was in the gang lifestyle. So how is reality a mirror when the gangster stayed alive and the boy that was going to school died? It seems like reality, the mirrors ain't mirroring in this reality. So somebody explain to me, how is reality a mirror when the good boys die and the bad boys stay alive? Talk to me, y'all, to end the show.
You know, when somebody good dies, I always say the world wasn't worthy of them.
Mm.
That's like a statement that, you know, you already realize that, you know, just because somebody good has suffered something, then there's definitely something deeper happening there. I just believe that even when we talk about good and bad, we're still in that very childish state where we just think that it sums up to that. Mm-hmm. This is why, you know, we continuously find more and more evidence, like the people who are controlling things and making it hard for people. These people are thriving. Why? Mm-hmm. I always account this to every realm, just like our brother Rob was saying, has its rules. If you enter into their game, quote unquote, you need to understand how to play. Mm-hmm. I see a lot of times cats get their paint knocked off because they are practicing the same thing that they're speaking against. Like they be coming in, acting like they're going to enlighten everybody, but then be stepping into the Jesus thing too and believing in that. You see what I mean? And then when something happens, it's like, well, wait a minute, that was the good person, that was the bad person. You got to be like, there's a scripture about them that Moses was following the angel and watching this angel do all this crazy stuff. And he thought the angel was evil. But then in the end, when the angel explained why he did things, he was able to see that he was actually averting other much more greater disasters. So a lot of times, and also just our standard, I ain't never really seen anybody become something great that haven't been through something.
Mhm.
And a lot of times good people have that continuous lesson of learning how not to be taken advantage of. These are two totally different things. Like being adept means that if somebody comes and says, hey, let's go and do this, you're really still scanning that to see if that's going to compromise your soul rather than just being this nice and good person like, oh, okay, I believe that that's okay. Right.
Mhm.
So there's this side to where we need to grow, where we need to be very serious about what we're doing. And the thing about it is you'll notice that people who you're calling evil or bad people, one thing that they have made their mind up on is being exactly who they are.
Woo!
Sometimes in the world,
There you
being
go.
who you are takes you further than being who you are not. And a timid person has a tendency to be in some kind of altered state of consciousness or a character versus their
That's deep.
original self. And the journey in itself is to get back to the originality. It's basically Amagi, to go back into the womb where there's no debt. But to be able to enter back into that state, you also going to go through a whole process of clearing and moving things. And that's going to feel like turbulence. And if it's not, that means ain't no real lessons being learned. I like what Rod said, like only the strong really are going to make it through this. That's what our ancestors have going on here. It's like they're breeding up in that way. And so, yeah, I mean, but again, if we have this idea that it's all like, airy fairy and loving and all this kind of stuff, like we will maybe forget the chastisement that even our parents gave us that actually made us even the people that we are right now versus watching another kid who's basically not getting any kind of chastisement and they don't even seem to be growing at all. So that's just me weighing in, on what you're asking.
Excellent, my brother. Rod, close it out, my brother.
Everything in life is about cause and effect.
Mm-hmm.
Right? When you see the gangbangers shooting at each other, you're looking at war.
Mm-hmm.
In war, they have a term called collateral damage.
Mm-hmm.
The collateral damage is the civilian who had nothing to do with the conflict, who caught the stray bullet, who put him down.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Now, do you get mad at the soldiers for fighting a war, or do you get mad at the bystander for being at the wrong place at the wrong time? Right? So you have to look at all things are converging. How do you shock the consciousness of the people in order for them to demand change? You need what's called an emotionally polarizing event. In the current lifestyle we live in, you are constantly bombarded with emotionally polarizing events to the point now we've become numb to them. Nobody didn't tell us that the good don't suffer. That's not true. Good don't suffer probably more than the bad. The reason why the bad normally don't suffer as much as the good is because they bold enough to step out on who they is and do they dirt in the open, straight up in your face. They don't care about none of the other rules to the game because they down applying they apply will to deviate from the course that the game was telling them to follow.
Exactly.
You don't know nobody that's all good or nobody that's all bad. I done sat at the table across from serial killers and seen cold death in their eyes. And all of the time, they are just happy to be in my presence, make me feel good. Right? So ain't nobody all good, ain't nobody all bad. And every event is to use as a marker to determine what need to be changed in the society. If you want the innocent to stop getting killed, you got to put an end to the war. Because then you don't have collateral damage when you're not at war.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And now you have to figure out who is the warring faction so that you can negotiate the peace between the two.
Exactly.
Right? And it's an ongoing balancing of energies throughout your life, and the better you become, the higher your spiritual rank is until you get to the point where you at the pinnacle, at the top of the pyramid, the all-seeing eye.
Yeah.
Right? Because you become Cyclops, the one-eyed giant, standing on the shoulder of other giants. You can see further than them all. Right? And this is how the energy doesn't discriminate against who we think is good or bad. The energy is going to execute the program regardless of who's standing in the way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's why Mama used to say bullets ain't got no name on them. Until they got a name on them.
Rod, you cold-blooded. You ain't have to say that at the end of the show. You said Mama said bullets ain't got no name. Woo-hoo-hoo.
Bullets ain't got no name until somebody put a name on them.
Listen, gentlemen, I gotta say this. This was an absolutely amazing. You know, you got black people stress the amazing show. Oh my God. I loved it. Y'all loved it. Yo, listen. Rod Hayes, Sevan Bomar, and Rod Hayes, what's your cash app, brother? Because I know you somebody asked earlier. I know you, what's your cash app, brother?
Me?
Yeah.
$sign SIK8, SIKAPE. Mine is the one that was started in 2017, if you get confused. It's the oldest one of them because it got some people that be trying to do that player hater stuff.
Oh, I know the scam artists out there. It's SIK8 what? I'm gonna write it in the chat. SIK8 what?
$sign SIKAPE. Capital S and the capital A.
And Sevan, you're in Costa. You don't deal with Cash App, right?
No, I mean they can, really just check out the app. You know what I mean? We're here, and yeah, man. I just want to also say, man, I thoroughly enjoyed myself. Like I didn't know what to expect, but greatness from the show.
Yeah,
we're coming in. It's already it's December 19th. Man, this year went by fast.
Super fast.
We already in January almost. So this sets the pace really nice.
Hey, let me ask you this. I know I said that was the last one. Is there any reason, or am I looking too deep into it, why they're releasing Lion King around the winter solstice? They're releasing Lion King again. Some people that may not.
The Lion King, the story of Osiris.
Mm-hmm.
Right. In the Christmas solstice.
The movie Mustafa, for those who don't know about Rod, yeah.
But that's the story of Heru rising up to become Osiris. The sun becomes the father ruler on the throne. Exactly. The winter solstice is the lowest energy of the planet at that time. Mm-hmm. Why it's the winter solstice, it symbolizes the death of Earth, and then spring comes and she's born again. Mm-hmm. Right? So they coincide with telling the story of the fallen father in the underworld as he fights his way through the hero's journey, following the fool's journey, as above, so below. Mm-hmm. And as the father makes his journey through the underworld, the sun rises up in the physical world. Mm-hmm. Right? So it's all symbolism based off ancient Hermetic science. Right, the holy drama, the Osirian resurrection story. So this is what the whole Mufasa. That's why the Rafiki took the cub to the water, and he seen his father's face in his reflection. Yeah, the son becomes the father.
Yeah, indeed. Excellent. Listen, family, we're getting out of here. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Make sure you support Rod Hayes on the Cash App. Make sure y'all support Sevan Bomar with the links I posted in the chat. I am indefinitely getting the AI masterclass. I want to support you, Sevan. I don't want you to say, I'll give it to you, Rich. Don't worry. No. I want to support Sevan. I don't want to hear that. Brother Rich, I said, don't worry. No. I want to support my brother. Because, that's how we do. You know what I'm saying? And what he does, I keep telling y'all, it's so important. We don't have nobody in that space like that. I don't want to say.
It was the brother that created AI in the beginning, anyway.
Exactly.
It was the brother who created the cell phone in the beginning, anyway.
Yeah.
It was the brother that created the internet.
Yeah. When I first woke up, there was a dude in the barbershop with me in Atlanta. And that's why I'm saying Atlanta got something going on too. When I was even at the comedy club, as I mentioned, everybody that was in that room ended up becoming something. So there's something, there's always something else going on if you're paying attention. But I was always getting my hair cut at the barbershop, and I wasn't at where I'm at all, but I always kind of had something going on. Right. This dude was coming all the time in a bulletproof Mercedes. He was just sitting there. And I guess he just got so tired they listened to me not know what I was talking about. He was like, look, man, did you know black man created the first laser disc? A black man created the first computer chip. He said, man, I went up in a mineralized cloud with some indigenous men, and 1,000 years seemed like one day, right? So he was just going in about all this, right? And I'm thinking like, I like this, what he's saying, but I definitely don't believe it. So check it out. It's always an anniversary for me on December 22nd, because that's when the whole thing happened to me. It was the 22nd, the 23rd, the 24th, and the 25th, in that range, which we're about to go over right now. When I was done with that process, the first person I was looking for was that guy, because it seemed like he was the only one that I had come in contact with that seemed to know something about what was going on with the activation. So I asked my barber, I was like, yo, I need to talk to that dude. I found the dude's name is Winston. That's all I was able to find out. He said, Winston? And I said, yeah. He said, are you sure you want to talk to Winston? Because what you're telling me, you may not want to talk to Winston. And I said, why? He said, well, and if I get the story straight, he was like, when Malcolm had the court case, basically, none of the attorneys will represent him. So the government sent in Winston. Mm-hmm. You see what I mean? So basically it was saying, hey, these people but I'm just saying that all these are touch points. So you'll be around people they're already aware of what's going on. They already aware of these higher levels of consciousness. Like Rod, he was hitting on something he was hitting on something beautiful today, which is about the families. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Like in understanding, like he said, you got to figure out how to negotiate as a sovereign your own treaty with these ruling family skirmishers, right? To put a pathway in for your people, your ancestors, your lineage. You see what I mean? So that's really all of what this is doing for us too, is just bringing us to another level of, instead of being like children under surrogate parents waiting for Santa to come, and Superman, he also released today, Superman to come save the thing. It's more of like us just powering up into the reality of who we are, who our ancestors was, better or worst, and then standing on the shoulders of those giants and continuing to move through, and then showing how when we get into these spaces, like they already say, hey, like I own text-to-image.ai, I own generative systems.ai and those systems, because those domains, because I knew how valuable they were when the whole thing started. But the reality is that I still haven't seen anybody doing AI like us. It's like, it's like when we get in there, we seem to be able to expunge. Like if this thing can create a picture, we figure out how to make it create the best picture. And that's what we kind of bring out of anything. And that's when I'm trying to encourage everybody, like, yo, remember, it's when something has a lot of power, for sure. You're going to find folks using it for terrible things. They're doing it now. But if we can get more people that are activated, aware, and engaged into using things, it's lowering the barrier entry for them, and they're able to go in and create stuff that we've been expecting to happen in this world. That's what I'm seeing it as. So, I mean, just giving thanks to the tribe, giving thanks to everybody that joined in. It was I saw the chat. The chat was lit. Like I clicked back in there, and that thing went.
The chat was moving. The chat was moving and booming tonight. Shout out to everybody in the chat. We had 4,000 people the whole 2.5 hours. 4,000 people. Y'all stayed here the entire time. Listen, I appreciate y'all. Sevan Bomar, Rod Hayes, classic show. We got to do this again in 2025. Sometime in 2025 we got to do this again. You know what I'm saying? I appreciate y'all. Make sure y'all support these brothers and what they got going on, whether it's Cash App, whether it's websites, whether it's workshops, whether it's ebooks, whatever they got going on, Facebook accounts, Instagram accounts. Support them. What they got going on, they got a lot of important information to share with us. With that being said, this is Brother Rich, aka Radiohead Rich. We signing out, family. Peace, everyone. All right.
Hey,
Peace,
brother
y'all.
Rich, it's a brother. I'm gonna send you his link. He's
Yeah.
one of your homeboys out of New York. I
Okay.
want you to check him out. His stuff good.
Send me text it to me.
Yeah, I'm gonna send it to you.
Got you. Peace, family. See y'all tomorrow.
All
Peace.
right,
Peace.
peace. I had a blast.
Peace, y'all. All right.
Rod.